Linda, can you hear me?
I can, and now you can hear me.
Yes.
Hi.
Great. Thanks. Hey, Jimmy.
Hey.
Can you hear me, Bill?
Yes. Catherine, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. There's no video. I guess you probably have it set that way.
Yeah.
All right.
So 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4 out of the 5. Art said that he had another had a business commitment tonight, work commitment that he couldn't be here for. Okay. Okay. Well, let me get my agenda up. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we're going to start with the agenda item 1, the public comments. And so far, I have Sarah Teal, Usha Devi, Gerald Burgess, and Chris Lampert. Has anybody else popped up?
Yeah,
We got Melvin.
Melvin. Yes.
Hi, y'all.
Hey.
Okay. And who's at 8120? Last 4 digits of their phone number is 8120.
That would be David Flores.
Okay, David Flores. Okay. And Jimmy, we've just got you on, right?
Yes, ma'am.
It
Well,
just on
Diana's
the
here.
okay. Okay. Well, Sarah, did you wish to make a public comment tonight?
I do.
And did you have an agenda item?
I do not.
Okay. And Usha, did you want to make a public comment or a comment about an agenda item tonight?
No, I don't have. Thank you.
Okay. And Gerald, did you wish to make a public comment tonight? You're muted, Gerald. Now I will circle around. How about Chris? Did you wish to make a public comment?
No, I'm just here for the HOA.
Okay. And Melvin, did you wish to make a public comment tonight?
My comments will be reserved for the presidential or president of the homeowners association address.
Okay, that's another agenda item. Okay.
Yeah.
And David Flores, did you wish to make a public comment?
Yes, I have a public comment. No agenda items tonight.
Okay, so Gerald, I'm going to circle back to you. Did you wish to make a public comment?
Just one public comment. I'm sorry, I'm not technically. My wife had to
fine. Did you wish to speak to a specific agenda item?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like tonight we just have 3 public comments. And Jimmy, are you going to be my timekeeper tonight? Wait a minute. Somebody else just jumped on the phone, jumped on.
I did. I'm not being able to stay logged in.
Got it. Okay, so that was Beth. Okay. Okay, so you're having technical difficulties?
Yeah, I could see you guys for a minute and then it boots me out, and then I see you for a minute and it boots me out. So I'm just going to call in.
Okay, got it. Okay, so Sarah, I'm going to start with you.
Start.
At the DRC meeting in December, it became clear that deed enforcement contractor Sage Management had been sending inaccurate and unfounded letters to neighbors about deed infractions, and that no one except for board director Linda Fobb had even taken the time to look over these letters, despite the fact that these letters go out every month to the people who voted to put the board of directors in charge of looking after their best interests. The fraudulent letters, the harassment of vulnerable neighbors, the acting outside of contractual obligations, the self-proclaimed ability of the contractor to find some neighbors and just turn a blind eye to others were all chalked up to being just a mistake. Well, here we are 1 month later, and the question is, who looked at Sage's letters this month? Did board directors Catherine Franke and Beth Jones, who sit on the deed enforcement committee, take the time to look at the letters that Sage Management sent to neighbors to see if they were accurate, appropriate, and adhered to the residents' rights defined in their contract? If they didn't, why not? Many of the board directors that currently sit on the board seem to have a hard time dedicating the time and energy needed to make sure that we are protected as constituents, that laws are being adhered to, that accounting practices are being followed, and that contractors are abiding by the agreements that they have legally made with our district. When I hear directors complaining about how long a meeting is running, because apparently they have more important things to do than fulfill the oath they made to the people in our mud, I can't help but be reminded of the following quote. Rarely do we find men who willingly engage in hard, solid thinking. There is an almost universal quest for easy answers and half-baked questions. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. Thank you.
Okay, Gerald, you have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Start.
Yes, so I just want to make a kind of a correction from last minute's comments I made in public comments about well, actually wasn't the public comments, it's about an agenda item regarding the attorney. I wasn't implying that the attorney wasn't, his job was to mute people or that he should be the referee for the board meeting. I'm sorry if it came across that way. I apologize. That wasn't my intent. And maybe I misspoke. My only reason for speaking up about board meetings and going into long lengths and et cetera was I know a board director at another board and they were having issues with regards to how long the meeting was running and people not speaking or not adhering to the agenda. They came up with a solution, and all I was trying to do was tell this board meeting what their solution was. But I don't know if it came across either, but the board and the attorney came to the agreement and there was a resolution and there was a protocol and there were rules, et cetera, et cetera. So it wasn't the board, it wasn't the attorney of the board that made the initiative to mute people if they were not speaking according to the rules. It was the board itself. So I didn't want people to think that that's what I thought we should do. I was just offering up a suggestion or just telling you how another board was able to resolve their issue. And no time the board's attorney it's his job is to referee the meeting unless the board so instructed him to do so. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gerald. And David Flores, you have 2 minutes.
Start.
David?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I apologize. I wanted to discuss about last month's agenda. There was number 16, answer to prior questions from citizens, and that has been taken off the agenda. So I just wanted to know how citizens are supposed to get those questions answered openly to the public. also wondering when Sage Management is going to go back to work at our location here. I feel that it has been long enough. I know we're still in a pandemic, but we have learned a lot from this pandemic on, having masks and everything. So I think it might be time for them to come back so there can be more of a connection between their customers and themselves. Also, Sage Management, there was a trailer on 3308 Peppergrass Trail that I reported to them on August 21st. And it was there 2 months prior to there. I just want to give these people time to see if they would, get their trailer out of there. So I let Sage Management know on the 21st. To this day, that trailer is still there. I believe Sage just told them to put a tarp over it and it would be fine. To me, that's not acceptable. The trailer's been there way too long, and I believe that Sage Management is not fulfilling their contract and not doing the best job and being excellent in the work that they do. And I also had a question about district insurance that got taken off the agenda as well, and I want to know where we are with insurance for our district. I don't want that to fall by the wayside, or I want our district to be protected. Thank you.
Catherine, you're muted.
I just did the same thing David did. I'm just start talking. Okay, so nobody else has jumped on to the doing the
Catherine,
public comments.
we do have someone that's called in on 3065 number, last 4 digits. I'm not sure who it is, if they want to speak.
Yeah, whoever.
So this is Christy. I live at 2806 Hannah K Lane. So good evening, but yes, I'm here.
Okay, so did you want to make a public comment or speak to an agenda item?
Oh, I'd like to be speaking for number 7. That's what I was calling in. So I'll wait till we reach that point, but thank you.
No, we're gonna do the public comments and comments about the agenda items at the front of the meeting. So I'm gonna give you 2 minutes right now.
Oh, I'll just wait to hear what the policy is. That's all. I don't have anything to say at this point because I'm determined on what the policy is in place at this time. So I'm just waiting to hear, and then we can move forward from there. But thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I am going to close the public comment section of this meetings, and we'll move to agenda item 2, which is online postings, inaccurate, misleading site names, district information, communications to residents to correct misstatements. Do we have anything from the board that they need to discuss on this agenda item?
I do.
Okay,
Ready?
go ahead.
There's a host of misleading information on the MUD's website that needs the immediate attention of the Information Management Committee. The deed restriction information screen displays Sage Management Services as the contact for ACC request forms for Hunters Glen 2. There is no ACC for Hunters Glen 2. That is misleading and needs to be corrected. The collection of these forms for Anderson Mill West identifies Sage Management Services as well. That's not in their contract to do work for the nonprofit Amwana. Tax dollars pay for Sage Management Services, they work for the MUD. Additionally, the Water Code doesn't give the MUD any authority or voice into ACCs and their business. That power wasn't granted by the Water Code. CCRs only. Housing the forms is no issue with me, provided they are directed appropriately. If Amwana's ACC wants to collect these forms from their members and have a decision-making voice in what people do to their property, then this form needs to indicate collection is to Amwana's ACC, not Sage Management, and that it is voluntary unless you're a member of Amwana. The MUD logo needs to be removed from the form and replaced with the Amwana logo. It's the business of Amwana, not the business of the MUD. The ACC form for Hunters Glen does not indicate that it is for Hunters Glen 1 only. Make that clear on the form and include the Hunters Glen 1 community logo if they have one. And please add an apostrophe to Hunters wherever it exists on the web. That's how it's recorded in their legal instruments. The MUD's website should be the source of the truth, and its documents need to reflect that. If any residents in Hunters Glen 2 wants oversight of their property by an ACC, we can suggest they become members of MWANA, where they can have access to that organization's private ACC. None of the requirements that are set forward in the SAGE contract that relate to the residents' right documents are posted, like exceptions or the unsightly rulings. The residents' rights document is also not published. That makes it impossible for residents to even ascertain what they're being fined for, totally against what has been stipulated in SAGE's contract. Lewis's website continues to operate with the MUD logo on it. This may need to be taken up legally to get it removed. A disclaimer needs to be placed on the website and the MUD water bill to clarify that the MUD does not have a Facebook page at this time and that anything perpetrating to represent the MUD local government is fraudulent. This item disappears from the agenda after tonight. So if this is to be discussed, now is the time. And Bill, I know I asked you before if you could contact Lewis about his site and removing the MUD logo. And I know that's really not your responsibility, but I think at some point it becomes really confusing for people out there who are doing searches and that pops up. And it's not a good representation of this district or the members of this current board. So if there's anyone who has a suggestion on how to deal with that, I'm here to listen.
So Bill, I'll just follow up with it. So what are the legal issues in terms of putting another person's logo on your Facebook page?
It's primarily misrepresentation of what the page is representing. So the reason I didn't try or attempt to contact Lewis or remove the logo is because even though, Linda, you mentioned it, I didn't get any clear direction from the board. So tonight, if the board wants to direct me to do so on those items you mentioned with respect to his website, I'll be happy to do that. I think you're right. There needs to be some clarifications on that page.
Well, Bill, but before you, and I appreciate that you're offering to do that, but I know you charge for your services. And I'm thinking that Lewis still has friends in the neighborhood and on this board that might be able to convince him without you having to bill us for that service, because it's the right thing to do.
Okay. I'll do what the board decides.
Thank you.
And I think Linda's right. We should probably take this up now. Otherwise, it'll just be sitting there for quite a while. So I'm interested in what the rest of the board thinks.
Well, I'll be quite honest. I haven't seen the Facebook page, so
I haven't either.
Does it just say, is it just the logo? I mean, I don't understand what the context of his page is in the logo.
So may I chime in real quick?
No, actually, not yet,
No,
Melvin, but
no.
Megan,
Okay.
Megan can answer that question for you. Megan, you've looked at his page, I'm sure.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it in a few months, so I don't
It
know.
hasn't changed. It hasn't changed a bit.
Is the logo in the profile photo?
No, actually, it's on the page itself. And the problem with the page today is, number one, he doesn't sit on the board, and it represents the opinions of the board. And Catherine's picture and Art's picture fly up as being owners of the site as well.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's the same site he may have used when you guys were campaigning a couple of years ago. And I think it just changed its purpose right now to be a
Okay.
disparaging website. So my
Okay.
point is this. He did his best. He put his best foot forward out there on that website, and it's time to take that down.
Okay, so the Facebook page then just needs to be renamed, is what we're saying, and just get the N with the
MUD's
logo.
logo needs to be removed.
Okay, hold on. I'm writing things down.
Yeah, he can rename it to his personal page, of course.
Right. Okay, so what I'm writing down is that we need to remove the WTCMUD1 logo. What else? And that it and that
Well,
it's
if you and Art like your picture on it as being partly responsible for what he posts on that page, I know that you don't
Yeah.
do Facebook, but you might want to consider that.
Okay. So I think right now what we'll do is I'll reach out to Lewis to deal with getting the MUD logo off it. So basically what I'm hearing, Bill, is that logos can only be used by the organizations that own them. Is that correct?
Well, if you had permission, you could use somebody else's logo.
Oh, okay.
But
Well,
I guess right now it constitutes a misrepresentation
okay.
because Lewis is no longer on the board, obviously, and it's
Right.
not being used to convey any opinions of this board. So it just
Right.
needs to be reconfigured to be clear it's his page, or like Linda suggested, it could also be just taken down.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Now the what else needed to be discussed on this?
Well,
on
the rest, Catherine, I just wanted to let the Information Management Committee know what's missing out there. I have no other way to communicate with them.
Right.
And I use this topic so that they will focus their attention on these things that are really important to residents' rights.
Right. Well, one of the things that I thought it would be important to follow up on is that historically, the deed restriction company has been the conduit through which the hub through which ACC requests flow through. So
they're not for the HOAs. I know Hunters Glen 1 is now servicing their forms through Sage. That's kind of surprising because they still have a management company, but I do not object to if it even says send your forms to Amwana at this address. That's fine. At least people know where to go. It needs to identify that it's a voluntary form for them, but I don't object to it being on the website. I want it directed to the people who are responsible for that function, not Sage management.
Well, the point I was trying to make is that the deed restriction enforcement company has always acted as the hub for the Anderson Mill West Neighborhood Association. So even it's because it doesn't matter if you're a $5 a year dues paying member of the Anderson Mill West Neighborhood Association, the issues that are surrounding the ACC are there regardless of whether or not you're a member of the neighborhood association. And so the deed restriction enforcement company has always acted as the hub, that you submit your forms for approval to the deed restriction enforcement company. They forward them to the ACC. The ACC renders their opinion. 99.9% of the time, it's their approval of whatever it is they're asking for. And then the deed restriction enforcement organization has a record of this being submitted to and approved by the ACC, or submitted to and not approved by the ACC.
And Catherine, I do appreciate that that's the way it's always been done, but these are new times and we can do things a little differently. And let me tell you why I suggest it be done differently. Because the MUD, Amwana is the one that is taking charge of the ACC, not the MUD. So therefore, they are the collectors and disseminators of information, not the MUD's contractor. And why would the MUD pay the contractor to handle paperwork for a nonprofit organization? It just doesn't need to be done that way. And I would like to sever the MUD from the ACC links it has created, because the MUD has no authority over an ACC and can only determine if it wants to use the opinions that they render. And it's
Okay.
easy to do it. It's easy
we're
to do
getting off
it
topic.
directly to Amwana because they have a means of reaching them. It's not like they don't have contact information or that residents can't submit directly to them. They most certainly can.
Okay.
I think it's time to consider a new way.
If I could just weigh in, Catherine.
Sure.
I just looked at it real quick, what Linda's talking about, just that one form. And it does have the MUD's logo on it. And it is the case that the ACC is not affiliated with the MUD. So if it's okay with the board, as part of the Information Management Committee, I can work with Melvin to get forms and whatever squared away to make sure that everything it's accurately represented on our site. I just in general, just so the board knows, I'm in response to what Linda's saying, I'm kind of in the process of, as part of the Information Management Committee, going through the entire website. And I'm trying to do it in a really logical, kind of starting at the homepage and going through every, rather than just sort of picking and choosing. So I appreciate that there's probably some things that might seem more like we should get them changed right away. The reason I haven't changed anything is because, she got board approval, number one, and number two, I'm trying to do it sort of methodically so that I can do a comprehensive sort of like, here's what I found, here are my thoughts, versus like, a thing here, a thing there, and then this month this and this. So that, I agree that there needs to be some stuff on that page, and frankly,
I think the reason that I bring forward the deed page, number one, this is the deed restriction committee meeting, so it just made appropriate sense to discuss those needs here in this meeting. And more importantly, because everything written that gives the residents of our community any rights points them back to the MUD for that information. And if it's not there, they have no rights that they're aware of, unless you have access to Sage Management's contract where the resident rights are listed as an exhibit to their contract, or if you have access to the documents that I've obtained through their contract. Residents can't know. So we can't every single month keep sending them these letters that point them to a website where no information exists. It's not fair. It's not equitable. And I know, Megan, your plate is so full, you probably need a bowl. But here's the deal. Those letters go out every single month. And for months on end, that information is not available to the residents. We can't keep doing this. It has to be the priority on the web.
If the board would like, I will volunteer to prioritize looking at that page of the website first, so that I can be in a position to just sort of present, potential changes we have our extra special board meeting, fourth board meeting of the month coming up on, I guess, next week. So, I mean, if the board wants to do that.
I don't know a better way. I really don't. And it's really hard when we have to wait between meetings to get work done. I'm struggling the same as you are, trying to move the ball forward and being constrained by only in a public meeting. I can't even send the things that I'm finding to you that really, I believe, need attention. So I would like, if we could, to get a vote from the board to see if we can make the deed area of the MUD the priority right now, because we are having such enormous problems in this area with the residents, not with us, but with the residents of the community. I think it would help tremendously. And I know you'll give it all the attention it deserves.
Yeah, I don't have a problem Megan, with you and Beth deciding, what you want to be your priority as you do reviews of the website. What I did want to do was ask Bill what is to fill us in on some background as to why we have done things the way we have, because as I've said, the deed restriction enforcement company has always been the hub of the interaction with the community and the ACC. And I'd like to have some understanding of how that all started, because it's like you said, Linda, this is
It's
just
the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
I know. It's easy the way it's always been done. It really takes a lot of thinking to change things.
Okay, so I'll try to do this very quickly from memory, Catherine.
Yeah,
But it's actually been a long time. So prior contracts for deed restriction enforcement managers have had some language on facilitating the flow of paperwork like you're describing, especially for the Andersonville West ACC. And that was specifically in their contracts and was also an accommodation to make sure the paperwork was processed as you said. Never did the Deed Restriction Enforcement Committee or the MUD board approve or disapprove the applications. The idea was this facilitated the processing. Now we're in I'm pretty sure that started probably back in 2006 or 2007. Now we're in a much more modern age. We have technology. So, submission via email or online is a lot easier than it was a number of years ago. So I think that probably Linda has some legitimate points about the processing. If the forms are available on the website, but direct them to be emailed to the ACC, I'm guessing that's going to probably be sufficient these days. But yes, in the past, it was much more difficult. Just getting information to the ACC and back was probably a lot more difficult than it is now.
Okay. Okay, so do we have any more to discuss on agenda item 2?
I'm good. Thank you, Catherine.
Okay, agenda item 3, management report from Sage Services.
Go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In December, we had 4 trash cans in view. They were all friendlies. We had 2 open storage, one of which was under the committee for review. We sent 2 fine letters for the other open storage issues. They had already been escalated to legal, and that has recently been cleaned up. I'm not really sure if Bill will want to talk to that issue, but we did send 2 fines, and I posted that information with Infomark in December. The fines to Infomark. We had 6 unregistered cars. 2 were friendlies. They were new. They have been cured. 2 had fines under committee review. This resident is having some difficulty, and they had appealed to the board directly, to the board president, and we are working with them to help them resolve the issue through the DRC. We also had 2 fines that we were told to post that were tied to the one case on Tierra Blanco that was escalated to legal. Those have also been cured in January. I'll let Bill update you on what the progress is on that. On the trailers, we had 4 friendlies. One of those friendlies was a double because we had one of the trailers that is a big box trailer. It is going to be moved over to be reported under pods and dumpsters because the property was sold in late October, but we were not able to access the information of the new owners to send them the friendly. So we were trying to make contact at the property. We also had 2 fine letters attached with that. They were escalated to legal. It's in Bill's area now. Pods and dumpsters. We've had one-on-one meetings through in December right before the holiday. We did have one dumpster pod that we did not take a photo of, but it was because the resident reached out directly to the committee and let them know that they were doing a remodel. We've had 4 fencing issues. 2 of them have fines and they are under committee review. 2 have been escalated to legal. Again, it's tied to the Tierra Blanco property. So I will let you, I will let legal refer to that under their area. We did not have any overnight parking violations. The moratorium was in effect for December because of the holiday. We are scheduled to restart the overnight parking tours this week, and we'll have more to report on that. Do you have any questions on any of those violations?
Yeah, so the your trailers was one of them. The pepper grass trailer that David Flores reported.
When at the time that report came in, Sage was told that we had to confirm if it was coming from within the same area. So even though we did not follow up directly with David on that because he was not able to report it's not from his area, Jimmy did follow up on spider on peppergrass, and he can give you the latest on that.
I am familiar with what he's talking about. I will be out there tomorrow. I was given some information by the renter that is a resident there, and that will get corrected. I cannot tell you any more until I have that information.
So is this the same? I know that there's been a trailer that keeps coming and going on pepper grass. Are we talking about the same house? No. Okay, this is a different one. Okay.
Catherine?
Yeah.
Catherine, I'd like to clarify that David Flores does live in Anderson Mill West and Peppergrass is in Anderson Mill West. So he, as a resident, can report anything in Anderson Mill West. It doesn't have to be in his section. I think Jimmy and Diana Sagnes need to read their contract a little closer.
No.
We will be looking at that specific trailer. I know exactly where it's at.
Okay. Okay, so what
Catherine, can I ask
Sure.
some questions?
Sure.
So Diana, on your chart where you have items escalated to legal,
Yes.
you know, sometimes you have 2 fine letters, it's the same property and so forth.
Yes.
So every place that you have escalated to legal, is it all on the Tierra Blanco property?
The fencing issue, yes. The 2 trailers, 2 fines, yes. The unregistered vehicle, 2 fines, legal escalation, yes. The open storage, 2 fine letters, escalated to legal, yes. Tierra Blanco.
All right, I just wanted to confirm we're talking about, it's all one property.
Right. Okay.
Bill, excuse me, Bill, did you catch on the letters that 3 of those letters went to Tierra Blanco Cove and not Tierra Blanco Drive?
No, I didn't catch, I haven't looked at them that closely.
They were misaddressed. I don't know what happens when that happens, if the mailman knows that there's probably no 2700 in the Cove, but I don't know what they do with letters that are misaddressed like that. 3 of them this month were like that.
Okay, so do we have anything else to discuss under agenda item 3?
Yes, I would like to discuss agenda item 3.
Okay, so what did you want to discuss?
So the first thing I want to know is if the DRC committee had a chance to look at those letters this month before they went out, or if any member of the board had an opportunity to read those letters.
No, what I did was review the reports, and I had a discussion with Jimmy and Diana about what letters were going out. I did that for January. I did not do anything for December.
Okay, well, they continue to be riddled with errors, and people tend to ignore unprofessional looking correspondence. And for the residents in the legal crosshairs, it must make it more difficult to argue that many notices were sent to a resident when the mailing address is often incorrect. And as I just told Bill, this month, 3 letters destined for the repeat violator on Tierra Blanco Drive were sent to Tierra Blanco Cove. The letters show that the section of the deed that Sage is using to demand repair of fences or trimming hedges is the maintenance, alteration, or removal of improvement section of the deeds. That section requires a condition and repair opinion by the committee. None of the 4 letters claiming this violation indicate that a committee was involved in determining the condition or the repair. That violates the deed and the residents' rights to their property. Diana and Jimmy are not the committee. The letter continues to have inappropriate web links for constituents to even reach out to see their deeds. This was supposed to be corrected last month. I pointed this out. The Sagnesses sent another letter to the trailer that said its parking was inappropriate because it was parked on the property, when the picture shows it was illegally parked in the street. That section does not prohibit trailers in the street. If it was an obstruction in the street, then it was a sheriff issue, not a deed issue. Sage continues to overstep their authority in a way that brings a great deal of liability to the district. When these fraudulent letters are all eventually revealed to those neighbors that Sage has sent them to, then we are going to have to answer for why we allowed our contractor to continually fining our residents, possibly with a large settlement owed to those that were harmed. We need to get on top of this immediately instead of continuing to turn a blind eye. This is also the second month where Sage charges more for letters than they actually sent out, with no documentation regarding the extra letter equals a conversation documentation. I did some checking after last meeting, and according to Bill, Sage is not keeping a shared drive with all of their documents like their contract requires, and the district is paying extra money to hunt around for their documents when they are needed. It is also of concern that Sage appears to be using Bill like their own lawyer and racking up fees accordingly. Remind me if Bill is being used for substantial work by the DRC committee, the funds obligated to that need to be put in writing and brought to the next board meeting. And that includes if Sage, everything they do, they send to Bill, and Bill's office charges for reading their emails and addressing those. It's stepping out of bounds. I don't think that's the right way to approach this. I need the DRC committee to get involved in these letters and look at them. I created a spreadsheet, which is what I'm using in the review of their performance. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you they are not complying with the rules of their contract. They are not notifying residents per the outline in the district rules that are published on the website about the ordering of fines and how these things work. It's not working the same for everybody, and that's not fair. We have to make it work the same for everybody, or we really need to reconsider if we need to be doing this. And that's the end of my report about number 3.
Okay. Okay. Agenda.
Catherine or Bill,
Yeah.
wait, before we go on, is it okay for me to send this spreadsheet of this month's letter to the DRC committee so that they can see what I see? It must be really hard for them to appreciate what I'm seeing if they're not reading the letters and if they haven't summarized them the way that I have.
Yeah, you can send it, but Catherine and Beth don't respond to it. It's just straight information.
I'm not asking for a comment.
Not back and forth, okay. Catherine, can I make a couple brief comments?
Sure.
Okay, so some of the issues that Linda has raised are actually legal questions on interpretations and so forth. And I agree, we need to have a way of addressing those. For example, the maintenance provisions that you have to maintain your improvements that you spoke of. And I don't want to give a legal opinion right now in open session. Linda has provided a number of questions similar to that to me. Catherine, and you and I talked about that as perhaps having an executive session on the 27th to address a whole bunch of questions regarding enforcement. But as far as reading the letters in advance, this board went through a process that was actually with Real Manage, where a lot of letters were going out that were incorrect. And so for a while, I think the DRC actually reviewed the letters before they went out. It can be quite a job. The DRC may or may not be able to do that entirely on their own, especially if there's a legal question. So, you know, I agree we have to have a better method of getting the letters correct, but it may be a little bit cumbersome on the DRC. As far as the shared drive issue that's come up, we have obtained a shared drive that has great capacity that we can provide access to Sage to upload if they like to upload all their information. I think it's important that at the very least our office have all the records that Sage has created for the district, and we're certainly able to do that now to upload them as a backup to the process. So we've done that, and we are willing to let that be used as the shared drive for now, since there was difficulty in getting that set up. And we're not going to be passing that expense off to the district. I'm going to treat that as kind of the backup of the data. We had a really bad event with Real Manage when Real Manage exited, and I think Linda, you were at those meetings, where the data was on a laptop of a fired employee, and we had a really bad situation. So I really don't want that to happen again at any point where we lose data. So I put that out there, and we can work out the details later, but we're trying real hard to get that rectified. I know their contract said that Sage should provide that, and there's been a lot of discussion about that, but we have one now that has great capacity that can be done. At the appropriate time, we could also provide director access to data, but I want to see the content before I do that. As you know, Linda, you have a pending lawsuit against the district. So I don't feel comfortable giving unlimited access to everything because I don't know what's going to be in there. But at some point, once we can segregate it, the directors can get access to that in the future too, which I think will be a good system. My goal is to just get everything in place so we at least have a backup of the data. So that's what I'm trying to do. Other than that, I don't have any, direct responses right now. There'll be some of these questions that are raised. There'll be legal questions that I don't want to address in open session. Okay.
I respect that, Bill, and I do want to say I appreciate your shared drive. It has made the letters so much easier to go to the source to look at them, but it is just the letters. And in order to validate conversations.
Correct. No, this time, because of your comments on getting all the PDFs in an email, we did a Dropbox setup. Now, we could do that before with a very limited Dropbox. What we have now is a Dropbox drive that has like 2 terabytes on it, and you can give people access. It's like a family Dropbox where you have 5 or 6 licenses. So you license someone to get access. You can limit the access. A lot different than what we just sent you. What we sent you was just access to a piece of what we had.
Okay.
So,
and I do want to make sure that anyone who is on this call and listening, my lawsuit has nothing to do with deed enforcement against my property or any actions by Sage. So I don't understand. I respect that you want to make sure that there's nothing in there that I can't see, but any work that Sage is doing in this district has nothing to do with my lawsuit.
probably going forward, that's correct. It might be communications. There might be some communications.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. I just want to make people aware
Okay.
that I am not in violation of the deed and suing about that.
Okay, so So Bill, so what you've done as an interim, because the MUD doesn't have its Google Drive set up, and so there's no place for Sage to be in compliance with
Mhm.
their contract to
Yeah.
upload their data, is that you've created a space for them to do that upload while the MUD continues to get their Google Drive set up.
Well, I wouldn't quite phrase it. I'm trying to accommodate the situation so that we can move forward and at least have the data secured. There's multiple things going on here. One is, yes, the Records Modernization Committee has proposed that we have Google Drives and we have information on the Google Drive in the district. And the district has not established that yet. That's true. But Sage's contract did require them to establish a shared drive, something probably similar to what I just mentioned, to put their data on, give us access and give us backup. So I'm just trying to cut through all the confusion or disruption and provide a solution, not necessarily because the district doesn't have theirs, but because Sage didn't facilitate it yet.
Really, I thought it was the other direction. I thought that Sage's contract obligated them to upload their data to our shared drive system, not and they were not going to be the holders of our information. Their obligation was to move their data up to wherever we told them to put it.
Yeah, I think ultimately that was the idea that was going to happen. But
Okay.
in the interim, we had to function and secure the data and have access to the data. So, like I said, I have one established
Okay.
that Sage can get access to and upload information. We're going to try to get all their information uploaded soon. And then after I evaluate it, we can determine if we can give other persons access.
And,
Okay.
and Bill, did I understand you correctly the other day when you told me that you would not be managing that data? You would
Right.
just
That was the other day. I'm not actually going to be managing it, but we're going to host it.
You're just going to host it. Well, that's the same thing. You're not responsible for the contents. You're just providing a place to store it. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And modernization committee, that's
That's
Megan and
Art.
yeah.
Megan
I
and
knew it
Art.
was
Okay.
Art. Yeah.
Catherine, I don't know how much you are aware, but the district has been paying for a shared drive called Google Suite. It's a government suite, and they pay $2,700 a year to license that. And if you are looking for a place to do this shared drive thing, you might want to look at that, since we've already paid for it until I believe it's July of 2021 when it renews again.
Right. And I think that was the whole plan, but you still have to, I guess, do some configuration and do some setup. It's sort of like SharePoint. Believe it or not, SharePoint requires an awful lot of management in order to set it up correctly. Somebody ultimately has to be responsible for setting it up and managing the security in terms of the privileges of who sees what.
Right. I don't know what year Paul Rebego was on the board, but it was actually set up and in use when he was a member. So however long ago that was.
Wow.
But like any good piece of technology, if you don't maintain it, it becomes obsolete pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So, but I'm just letting the modernization committee know that there is something that exists, might be a starting point, might want to see what's out there. That kind of thing, just in case they didn't know.
Okay, so can we move on to agenda item 4? Okay, agenda item 4, pending appeals of fines for violations for the district rules. Okay, so do we have any pending appeals? I know that we've been in contact with a resident about their unlicensed vehicle. They'd like to appeal the fine, but it's like, you got to resolve the situation before you can appeal the fine. What else is out there, Jimmy and Diana?
You had an appeal that was sent for open storage signage at 3104 Birch.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so I'm going to give the overview of this. In the fall of 2019, there were fines for open storage that were waived. And then we come into the first quarter of 2020 and we've got open storage happening again. It happened 4 times during the pandemic where they were sent letters regarding their open storage. And then the pandemic protocols were lifted and they received 2 more fines for the same violations. And now they've cleaned it up and they're asking for the fines to be waived. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
So within a year, we had 1, 2, 6, we had 9 fines for the same,
Not fines, citation. I mean, because during
yeah,
the-
that's right, citations. They were but they at fine stage. They got letters at fine stage 9 times in a year.
But Catherine, right next to that property, the neighbor next door, the yard that abuts the side yard that's professed to be open storage, the neighbor at 3106 on that address has an equal amount of junk on the side of their house. And when I asked Sage why they're not on the report, they said the committee's aware of the problem. So I need to understand why the neighbor next door, who has exactly the same problem, is not being sent letters, is not in the fine stage, and the stuff on the side of that house has been there for almost a year. And I actually have taken pictures of it because I'm sure there will be discussion about what we saw, what we didn't. As a matter of fact, in this month's photos, you can actually see it sitting there at 3106, but they're not being cited for exactly the same violation. And I honestly need to understand why that is.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the same question.
Yes, go for it.
So when I was there 2 weeks ago, I took extensive photos from the curb, which is as close as I'm allowed to get. Either it's camouflaged by trash cans, which also is done at 3104, or there's some other stuff there that I cannot see without getting onto the property. Since I'm not allowed to get onto their driveway and walk up to that location, I did not get a picture of that. That is all that's going on with that. And this past 13 days ago, 3104 had cleaned up their stuff. There is a motor scooter that's still there, but that is the only thing that is remaining of all of the stuff that was at 3104. Again, I will be there again tomorrow, and if there is any indication of car parts or other stuff going on, there will be a photo taken. I am not playing favoritism for anyone.
See, you know that the 3106 is storing car parts on the side of their house. That is exactly what's there. And Jimmy, I would encourage you to look at the picture that you have attached to 3104 this month, and you can clearly see 3106's open storage, if you will. And I do want to say that a scooter is not open storage. So if you've cited them this month for a scooter, that's not open storage.
It was not cited this month. And I did take a very, very magnified look at it. All I saw was trash cans, a hose reel, and possibly some other one bag of stuff, but it was on a Tuesday. I did not see a violation with that. Again,
Catherine,
we'll be there tomorrow.
I want to make the point to you, because you are on the committee, that this is a repeat problem at this address. And when I asked this question of Jimmy and Diana Sagnas, the answer sent back to both me and Megan was the committee was aware of 3106 and apparently something at 3102, which I am not aware of. And the committee is aware of it. And that was the end of the answer, not why the committee has decided not to treat these people the same, just that you guys are aware that there is the same violations occurring at these addresses. Catherine, we can't do business like this. We
So
cannot do this.
3102 is the boat, 3104 is the open storage, and 3106 is,
They used to have a forklift.
They are open storage as well. They have car parts and some kind of a blue, I guess it may be a blue kiddie swimming pool maybe, or a tarp or something. I don't know. You can see it in Jimmy's picture. Take a look at the picture that you have this month for 3104 and look to the right. Look to the right of the address. That's the house that abuts.
okay. Well,
3104.
this is very interesting. Let's circle back
Okay.
to the appeal though. And so the appeal is that they would like to have their fines waived for a second time within a year. Am I saying that correct, Diana?
Yes.
Okay,
They're asking for the fines to be waived.
okay. And they've already had a waiver on this issue once, and just for the
Yes.
yeah, so for the process has always been that because our objective is compliance, it's not to collect money, that we always, without even thinking about it, we're always willing to waive a fine the first time. But we don't waive it the second time, and we don't waive it the third time. So I am not going to recommend that we waive this this fine. What I am willing to do though is offer the residents a payment plan, and I'm willing to make it a long payment plan. But I'm not willing to waive. I'm not going to waive the fines.
Well,
Beth,
Catherine, can I ask a question then?
yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and I know the rules are written somewhere along those lines of how you handle waiving fines and such. And I do remember the prior board making it really clear that the goal here is not to collect fines. That's not the goal.
Right.
I agree, that's not the goal. But I really am asking you to consider that when your neighbor is allowed to have the same violation as you for as long as you, it's just not fair to treat one differently than the other. And it really sets a bad precedent. And it's something I don't want to be a part of. I really don't. I want you to reconsider that the neighbor next door, the property right next door, is in this equal situation as 3104. And additionally, Catherine, we have another violation when we get down to agenda item 7 that has never been fined for their violation. Again, we have to be fair. It has to be fair. You can't let some people have a violation for 9 months without any consequences and then come down like a sledgehammer on this one family. They appear to be trying to appease you, or not you personally. Okay. The board itself.
Yeah, right.
They're
right.
trying. And they're
and-
getting, and they also got a letter about a fence without any committee involvement at all. So we have violated their rights. So I think we need to really consider, truly consider, what is the best path forward with this family? What's the best thing we can do for this family and achieve your desired goal of a compliant property? And I don't think $700 in fines stretched out over a period of God only knows how long is fair when other people who've been in violation of the deed for in excess of 9 months are not being fined. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I hear you.
Thank you.
Okay. Beth, did you have anything that you wanted to share?
And just that here's where I struggle a little bit listening to both of y'all, and I'm kind of in the middle. So I know that we lowered these fines down to $400, and they had 9 fines, and that we've erased so many of them, correct? And if we keep doing this over and over, then other people think, well, I can get waived because these people were waived. Well, I can get waived because these people were waived. That's where I struggle in all this, is I don't want our neighborhood to turn into a place where, oh, we can get away with this for 6 months or 7 months. Yes, COVID hit. Yes, we waived all that. Yes, we keep trying. I know Jimmy has gone out and tried to work with them and talk with them, but I kind of agree with what Catherine is saying, is if we don't ask them to be responsible for something in this, it's just going to keep happening. So that's my input on this.
In that same vein, I'm sure you will agree that the people who are in violation of the deed that suffer no consequences and no fines contributes to that same neighborhood you're fearful of this family producing.
Then you know what? Then we go out there and we look at the property and we deal with that property next. Right now, we're dealing with 3104. That's the one that has been written up, and that's the one that we need. We've given them so many different chances.
Well, Catherine, I
And
would
they
like
need to
I wanna-
understand.
I
Linda,
would
please
like
don't
to
interrupt me.
hear-
Please
would
do
like
not
to hear
interrupt
the
me. I
appeal.
don't think other people interrupt you when you're talking.
Go ahead.
All that I'm saying is, when an issue happens over and over and over for so many months, and we keep waiving it, there has to be a point where we have to hold them accountable so that they understand that this is real.
Okay.
Catherine, I would like to, for whoever has the appeal, to read the appeal. And I also want to get with Mackenzie tomorrow and get the full fine history of this property. So that before we take a vote, we need more information. 9 fines, all these waivers. I want to see this stuff before we take a vote. And I want to hear the latest appeal as it was written.
Okay. That is more than fine. Okay, so did we have any other appeals that we needed to deal with? Excuse me, Diana.
That was it.
Okay, so let's talk about agenda item 5, coordination of reporting between Sage and Inframark. So where are we
Wait.
standing on that one?
Why did you go past 4? I didn't hear the appeal.
We were just talking about number 4.
I want Sage, if they're the owners of the record, I want them to read the appeal.
Oh,
Or send me a copy.
yeah, we can. Yeah, I think I've got Sage. Diana, don't I have a copy of the appeal?
Yes.
Okay.
You can send it to me.
Yeah, I can send it to you. You just can't.
I won't respond.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Let me write that down.
Can it go to the whole board then, Catherine, or go through Bill or whatever it has to do?
Yeah. Why don't I guess why don't we handle it that way? And we'll let
Because Bill charges for that. Bill charges for that. Just send it. Don't respond. It's really simple. Just don't respond.
Well, I don't know, Bill. Are we skating here if we knowingly send something to more than 2 board members with the understanding that there can't be any discussion?
If the board members are feel comfortable with it, I'm fine with them sending one-way communications info only. It's the back and forth that's a problem. So Catherine, since we're talking about it at the board meeting, if you want to send it to all the board members and
Okay.
just say, do not reply to me, this information only. I'm
Okay.
okay with that. I agree with Linda. I don't think we need to incur legal costs every time we communicate. But in the past, there have been, I guess, greater concern that perhaps the board members wouldn't understand that that's not to be responded to. So you put on there,
so
do not respond,
Right.
information only. and then we'll try really hard to not violate any open meetings laws. But
Okay, because
if anybody has a question, like outside of a meeting, if you have a question as to whether you should send something to all the board members, I think you should ask me first.
okay. Well, because this is sort of, putting a whole new slant on things. I was just always under the impression that it was illegal for me under any way, shape, or form to send a communication, an email to more than one board member, period.
Well, that's the safe conservative interpretation to keep you from interacting with them. Yes.
Okay. Okay, number 5, agenda item 5, coordination of reporting between Sage Management and Infomark. Do we have anything to report on how that's going?
On December 3rd, I communicated with Infomark regarding fines, and then this past week, I also communicated with them again on the fines. When we came out of pandemic protocol, it kind of, we had a meeting to discuss when we were going to start posting the fines again. So we're kind of going from the 15th of the 15th with the posting of the fines now because of the time frame on the calendar.
Okay.
From coming out of pandemic protocol.
Okay. So agenda item 6, report from the DRC and act on restrictive covenant enforcement. So Bill, I want to talk about how something is being how something that's district wide is being enforced. Is this the appropriate place to discuss it?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the whole concept of when trash cans were supposed to be pulled off the street. And I think that the different neighborhoods and the different sections of Anderson Mill West sort of speak to this in different ways. And I want to find out if it is appropriate for us as a restrictive covenant enforcement policy to update our rules for deed restricted enforcement to say all trash cans have got to be off the street by 10 o'clock Wednesday morning. Is that somehow going to violate the differences that exist throughout the district?
Yeah, so actually that you probably can't do it in the manner that you're speaking of, unless the restrictive covenant actually specifies a time or a date. We can't go beyond that on deed restriction enforcement. However, I had given that a little bit of thought in the past, and I do believe the district could look at their rules and regulations because we provide the trash service. So it's not been, I haven't put any proposals together. It's not on the agenda to look at your rules and regulations.
Right.
But that would be the place that perhaps you could adopt a rule on trash service that relates to when the containers can be out.
Okay, because I'm just, what I'm trying to avoid is having an issue where, we've got Valente Hills speaks to something, and then Hunter's Glen speaks to something, and then we've got, umpteen sections of Anderson Mill West that may speak to it, may not speak to it. And I'm trying to come up with one policy of enforcement. And
Catherine,
so,
if I could just, I'm sorry, I thought you were finished. Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to add, and this wouldn't fix the whole district-wide issue, but I believe the ACC did make, the Anderson Mill West ACC did make a ruling because it's under the unsightly provisions.
Right, but we don't have unsightly in all of the sections, you know that.
well, we have them all but section 1. So it was for all but section 1. There was, the ACC did make a ruling, I don't know, 2 years ago or something, trying to address what makes it go from just I have my trash out to
Right.
an unsightly. And so
Right.
they did put some provisions on that. So won't fix the district-wide thing, but it would potentially, if the board decided to adopt that, and if Bill says that that's acceptable, that they
Right.
made that interpretation, then it's just one option.
I understand how difficult it must be to ride around and try to figure out whose trash can's in violation and whose isn't. But I would like to add that in my section, and I live in section 5 of Anderson Mill West, there's nothing in my deed that prevents my trash can from staying on the curb 24/7, 365. As you know, I'm not a member of the neighborhood association, so I don't subscribe to its rules. And there are no district rules that prohibit my trash can from being left on the curb. So
That's not a neighborhood association rule. That's an ACC interpretation.
exactly. And that interpretation, again, I don't subscribe to an interpretation that's made by a committee of an organization that I am not a member of.
Well, I believe that's what's being decided in the courts, I guess.
Right.
Right.
So
I'm suggesting that any changes to what's written in the deed, that's currently in the deed, would require a vote of the people, because that's pretty much
right.
how
And
this is
we're not talking about that. What we're talking about are the rules of enforcement. But I don't think, Linda, that you're saying that your trash can sit in the street, 7 days a week.
It can.
Bill, do you agree with that? Because I know we've had conversations about it, that we do think that there is a way, an issue with trash cans being in the street.
I don't know if I feel comfortable right now
Okay.
here
Okay.
at this open session, but I do think, Catherine, we might want to consider for this issue, visiting the rules and regulations of the district. Now, we have rules and regulations that deal with all of our functions, water, wastewater, and so forth. It's a pretty comprehensive set of rules. We don't have anything in there on trash pickup. I believe we could adopt rules on trash pickup that would address this trash container issue.
Okay, and so these are rules and, okay, but these are not DRC rules and regulations you're
It's not
talking
deed
about.
restrictions at all. It has nothing to do with deed restrictions.
That's what I thought. So give me the area that you're talking about making this a change.
You mean the rules that I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah.
So we have rules and regulations. You'll recall they came up when we had people blowing leaves into the drainage ways.
Those
Kinds, or illegal hookup to
Yes.
water service.
Yes.
Where
Okay.
the other rules are.
Okay. You're talking about those sets of rules. Okay. So what we're talking about is adding something about trash services.
Right. And I think that can be done. I of course not taking any action on it. I've just considered it on my own. So if the board wants to pursue that, I guess we'd have to get it to a committee and maybe work on something.
Right. Well, at that point, then my next question is, what do you think the appropriate committee would be?
Well, probably waste management, since they're gonna be doing it.
Well, that's Linda and Art then.
Linda and Art.
Yeah. Okay.
So Catherine, this meeting, we're talking about it today, but we don't have a specific item on those rules on this agenda.
Okay, because I was asking about,
You're asking the question. So what I would suggest is that you and I put this on our list for the 27th meeting.
Okay.
And make sure there's something on there where we can talk about it, and have the board approve me to work with the waste management company to pursue that if the board wants to. We just really can't vote on it tonight.
I agree. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
What meeting on the 27th?
The 27th is our third meeting of the month that we started.
Oh, did we start that?
Yeah, and so on the 27th, there's going to be a special board meeting, which is going to, and Catherine, interrupt me if I say this wrong.
Okay.
We've placed, if you notice and we have on this agenda at the end, discussing future meetings, so it's appropriate to discuss it today. Your Wednesday meeting, if you've read the agenda for Wednesday, is actually very limited in scope, but it's intended to give enough time to the engineer and infrastructure committee and the manager and financials, and pretty much take everything else off there except minutes. So that leaves us on the 27th to address everything else that's ready to address. And so the policy, Catherine, stop me if I say something wrong, but the policy basically is going to be, if a committee has something to present on the 27th, that they notify my office, certainly no later than maybe Thursday of this week, so we can post it on the 27th agenda. And the policy, I don't think it's going to work perfectly, is if it's not ready, then you don't get on the agenda. So this would be an example of something we could put on that agenda under, Waste Management Committee, and we could
Right.
talk about these rules.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you told me, Bill. I must have
Okay.
missed that email about the 27th because, I just,
So we talked about it at the last board meeting.
I didn't know that we were going to start.
Catherine wants to start, so.
Okay.
Right. Well, and if you notice, the agenda for for our Wednesday is, half the
trim.
size.
It's trim, and I
yeah.
loved it. I loved it when I saw it. So yeah.
Right. So hopefully, I'm hoping is that what we're going to end up with is, shorter meetings, and we're going to get to the point where if we only have things that can be on the first Wednesday meeting, that we can get rid of the second one. So,
Good
but
plan.
as it's working now, it looks like we're going to have another one the following week anyway to deal with the audit. But that's just the way life goes. Okay.
Catherine, can I just for clarification, if this is going to the waste, so that everyone's on board with what's being included and what they're supposed to look at, does that include, is that just trash cans? Or does that also include staging of bulk pickup stuff? Because
okay, where that is one of the things that we will be discussing. So
okay.
So the short answer is, Megan, the rules, if we have waste pickup rules, they should address those things and kind of match the waste management contract. Okay. We probably should adopt rules that match the contract so people have to comply with it.
Yeah, because I know one of the issues that was happening before, which triggered the ACC's look at that, was not just trash cans, but it was a bulk pickup issue where people were putting TVs or whatever out on the curb, and then they just leave them there. And then if Waste Management didn't pick them up for whatever reason, they just keep leaving them there. And so you just had stuff on the side of the road for like weeks. Yeah. So that was one of the reasons for that it was looked at back then. So I just
and it still happens, Megan. And when I walk by it, I just call it yard art, and I just keep on going. People are still doing it, and they move. Now the renters, they put it on the curb and then they move.
Oh, okay. Okay, so now we're up to the important meat of the meeting. Agenda item 7.
Wait, we didn't do 6. I didn't do 6. I didn't have a chance to comment on 6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's the report from the DRC. This is the only opportunity I have to talk to you, so I have to use this.
Okay.
Okay, so, and it does lead into 7 anyway, so it's kind of a good prelude to where you're headed. But the status on the Hannah K chickens, I know all of us received that email from the gentleman that lives next door. So I need to understand, because he's asking, and I need to understand why that family's violation that has been reported with documented evidence has not had a fine assessed for violating the deed. I need to understand why that's happened.
Well,
do you have something in writing that excuses that violation?
Well, the way I took this situation was that we put that whole enforcement on hold until we could come up with a policy, which is what we're about to start talking about now.
Okay, well, that is exactly the same thing, the same category, if you will, of trouble that the resident on 3104 Birch found themselves in. And with the Birch address, the only evidence was Jana's report. There was no person in the neighborhood, no board director, not Jimmy or Diana Sagnas. Nobody witnessed that livestock violation, if you will. Yet these people went straight to legal. So I'm having a very hard time explaining to people how things are done fair and equitably when another resident in this district with the exact same livestock violation has been excused for 9 months, despite it being a reported nuisance by their neighbor, with photos, with video evidence, and with audio recordings for 9 months without action. I know if I did a show of hands, there aren't half the people on this call that would say that was fair or equitable. So
Jimmy and Diana, have there been fines for the people at 3104 regarding their pig?
No.
Okay.
they went to legal. They went straight to legal action. No friendly letters, a complete diversion of all the rules. It went from 0 to legal in one public meeting.
I think that there was a whole bunch of other issues going on at this address, and that was why it was sent to legal. It wasn't
was
just
all done. It was all done outside of a public meeting, Catherine. It was not done in a public meeting. None of the issues with that residence, that property. It was all a Jana reporting to Sage Management. That's got this ball rolling, and the rules in the contract for Sage, the residents' rights, all of those things were violated in this instance. There was no citing by anyone, and it is required before you take it to this degree. And like I said, in the public meeting, it went from 0 to legal, never a friendly letter about that incident.
okay.
Catherine,
I'm not
may add to that and make a correction.
sure.
The report was done by the resident himself. He came out and told us about the pig. He reported the pig. He told us about the dogs. He even showed us one of his dogs that could smile. We got other reports submitted by other people because they also self-reported by posting videos of the pig on Facebook. Everything that came into us that the neighbor sent in, I sent to legal. We took it to the board because we didn't know how to handle it. We couldn't get a picture of the pig. All we had was the resident himself admitting that he had a pig. And this was at the same time that he was cleaning out the living room furniture and putting it out in the front for his pig. It was all at that same time. And we whatever he told us, we told you all at a board meeting. And then the decision to move forward, because we didn't know what to do at that point. We gave it to you all, and that's when it got escalated to legal.
Right. And just to follow up, I've tried to talk to animal control. I didn't want this to be our problem to enforce. I wanted another governmental entity to have to deal with. But because of the pandemic, we couldn't get anybody else to come out and say something about you can't be living with a pig in your house.
I think, well, actually you can, because potbelly pigs are not raised for food, they're raised to be pets, but we won't have that discussion. I'm not here to have that discussion. But what I do want to say is the rules of Sage Management's contract and the residents' rights, they can't operate on hearsay. They have to see it. The resident in question that came out boasting about all of this stuff is in jail. So credibility is pretty much lost there. The information that Diana is claiming was told to them directly is not congruent with the statement that she gave to legal about the whole situation. Everything in that statement is hearsay from Jana or the neighbor that lives next door that doesn't want to talk to anybody but legal. So it's just too much. There's just too much about this one that just doesn't pass the sniff test. None
Yeah,
of it.
it stinks. I agree. And you know,
It
it
does.
smells like pig doo-doo.
Well, you know what? That
Yeah.
might be the case, but until somebody witnesses that pig or you change the rules, there's been no sighting of that pig. And you can't produce photos that have no evidence that it came from this house, that it belongs to these residents. And people giving you Facebook photos, it could be from anybody's site. I mean, think about if you had to take
people are
it
going
for,
to jail for what they did in Washington D.C. and what they posted on their Facebook site. So I'm
because
not
it
going to
linked
accept
to
that.
them, Catherine. It linked to them. This
Yes.
doesn't link. This doesn't link. There's no name or address of that family on any of those photos.
Okay.
There's no way
okay.
to tell where they came from.
Are we ready to move on to agenda item 7?
Well, hold on. No, we're not, because and this is perfect because Melvin Alec is on the call. But I have been paying particular attention to the street parking situation because I knew this would be easy for me. So I have been driving down to Gama every single day after 10 o'clock and at 5 o'clock in the morning. And there is never less than one, and oftentimes as many 3 personal vehicles parked in front of Melvin Alec's property every night. These are not vehicles that meet the exception for street parking published by the MUD's website. These are personal vehicles that are parked overnight on the street, but they are not reported. And I need to understand again why some people are punished and others are not. It doesn't work. Please answer. This violation underscores what appears to be a pervasive lack of equity in deed enforcement that rewards those people who have personal connections to the board and punishes some of the most vulnerable people in our neighborhood. Allowing this kind of pervasive inequity is not only morally and ethically wrong, but if allowed to persist, will certainly exponentially increase the district's liability if these issues are ever brought into a court of law. And this is something else I discovered and I caught it in the invoices today. Did the DRC committee instruct Bill Flickinger to do an open records request to the Williamson County Sheriff's Office regarding the property at 3104 Birch Drive? If so, when and why did the committee decide without a public board discussion that this action was necessary to enforce the deed? I need to understand that. You're operating without any board involvement and you're doing it punitively, and I need to understand why.
Are we still on topic?
Yes, we are on number 6.
Okay, are we ready to move on to
I need you to answer. I don't have any other opportunity to discuss this with you. This is discussion by the DRC committee. These are things that the DRC committee has done. They have not been addressed in a public forum. I need to know why you are doing what you're doing. These are not decisions made by 2 people. These are decisions made by a 5-member board. Why did you ask Bill Flickinger to do an open records request to the Sheriff's Department? What are you looking for and why? How does it involve deed enforcement? I need to know.
Okay, I don't have any recollection about that. Bill, what can you remind me about?
Okay, so yes, we were asked to make an open records request as to all the law enforcement activities that address to determine if the animal in question was part of those reports, further evidence of the potential violation, whether they had actually gone into the house and so forth. And we have received those results. I've not sent them to anybody yet. They're at my office. And with the committee's permission, I'll be sending them to the entire board.
Okay. Okay, so that what you were doing is it was just part of our investigation to try to understand what's going on at that location.
Well, I'll give a little further insight, I guess, is when animal control or any public officer was asked to potentially investigate the situation, they couldn't get past the front door and talk to people. So we were curious as to what other information there was regarding the animal at the house. That's primarily why it was done.
Bill, can you tell me who asked you to do that? To do the open records request?
I think Catherine asked us. It's been a little while now. I think Catherine asked us.
I need to understand why the pig situation would go to animal control, but not the chickens.
Well, the pig situation, you know, Thomas, we're gonna really beat this dead pig. Let's put it that way.
Pig is very much alive, Catherine, and somebody's
I understand, but there was like, I'm going to repeat myself for like the 5th time. There was real concern about the health and safety of a vulnerable elderly woman living in this house with a pig. And it started with, okay, fine, we got a pig, but we've also got an elderly woman in here and we cannot get anybody to verify the health and welfare of this person who's living with farm animals. And I don't care. I know you keep saying that this is a pet. I'm sorry, this pet is 3 times the size of my small Labrador. And I don't think anybody would say that living with a barn animal in the house is a good thing.
Well, Catherine, I don't know anything about pigs, and I have never seen it personally. I have not, but I want to make something very, very clear here. The health and welfare of human beings is not a deed enforcement issue, period. If you have a concern about somebody's health and welfare, there are at least 5 numbers I can send you to call for well checks, and people will actually do that job. It is not a SAGE management job at all. And it does not require open records requests to the sheriff's department to check on the health and welfare of these people.
Well,
I think these are excuses
we have
done.
We have failed in attempting to on the health and welfare of our neighbor.
Then you're calling the wrong people. And seriously, if you didn't witness something personally, as Jana did not, and is recorded in the statement, then really you're stepping way out of bounds, You're actually interfering in somebody's life.
But if I remember correctly, by listening to those calls, that one of the reasons why you guys had somebody go over there is because the neighbors were complaining and you guys could not help those neighbors. Am I correct?
Right, because the pig kept breaking through the fence and was breaking through the fence of the surrounding into the yards, and the people living on either side were concerned about the safety of their children and their pets because this 200-pound plus animal was breaking through the fence. So that's really where this all started was with animal control. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we have a barn animal living in a house with a fragile elderly woman.
Do you know the elderly woman?
And also, let me just say, if I remember correctly, the neighbors did call the sheriff themselves, correct? That's what I remember.
I think there has been there's been a lot of activity at this location that has originated from the neighbors being concerned for their personal safety, the safety of their children, because of this animal was not being confined to its own yard, and it was living in a house with a fragile elderly woman. Linda, we can debate this for as long as you can, but I am not gonna say that I did a bad thing by being concerned about my neighbor living with a farm animal.
Well, I think your concern is genuine. I think the way you're handling it is not appropriate.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to step in and say, from what I remember from that call this was before I was on the board, but the only reason why you guys followed up with someone going out there is because the neighbors had already called the constable and the sheriff's department. And so if I remember correctly, Catherine, you did not get anybody else involved until way after the police had been out there several times.
Like I said, we still have a barn animal living in the house. Okay, I'm ready to move on.
About that, Catherine, though, because if we're moving on to the other issue, I think
Right.
it relates.
It does.
What does it mean for what does it actually mean for for Sage or anybody to independently, I think that's the language in the enforcement, we have to independently verify that the condition exists. Does that mean that Jimmy or Dana have to actually see it with their own eyeballs? Or what does that actually mean in practice? Because have they seen the chickens with their own eyeballs? I guess I'm just trying to understand if the rule is that in order to enforce, have to be able to have seen it themselves. Is that the rule, or what does kind of independent?
Okay, so Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, is in general, I think the inspector has to see it, or it has to be seen by a board member. So, and the reason I say that is that there have been times when Lewis and I went someplace and went and observed a problem that was going on at a residence, and we were used, and I think Chris has probably did it a number of times where their observation was the eyes on the site. And am I saying that correct, Bill?
Yeah, well, let me kind of give a little framework to this. In the past, we would get a lot of complaints, and sometimes neighbors just complain about other neighbors because they're upset. And so management company was fielding a lot of complaints, some of which may or may not have been valid. You just never know. And so, and I think it's still in our rules. It does enable the manager to send a friendly letter based upon this complaint that they might not be able to see. It could be something that occurs at night, or they just wouldn't see on an inspection. But in order to go forward with actually a fine letter, it has to be independently confirmed. And what that does mean, Megan, in my mind, is actually seeing it. And I don't have the rules in front of me, but I think we included the management company, a board member, and we might even have had the ACC member at one point. But the idea was we don't proceed with the fine process through the manager, the letters and fines, unless we can verify that. And so that avoids having neighbors file complaints that we might not be able to verify, resulting in fine letters. So I think friendlies are permitted, but beyond that, it's different. Now, the other aspect, and kind of to address some of Linda's concerns too, the rules provide that it can be escalated to legal at any time. And that's a board decision. Basically, the board votes, okay, we're going to send it to legal, like we've done on many occasions. And that comes to our office, and then we make a determination as to whether there's enough evidence of a violation, if we can proceed. And so we did look at everything that was provided to us. Linda, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe there was actually a posting by the owner on Facebook.
How could you tell it was the owner?
Um,
How could you tell it was the
I
owner?
think
Her name wasn't there.
we could. I think we could.
I think you need to look at that again.
Well, I'll be happy to, but I'm trying to explain the general process. It comes to our office and then we look at what's been presented before we send a letter. We don't automatically send a letter from our office unless we feel we have a valid reason to do it. That is not the same process as the eyes-on validation by a board member or ACC member or manager. That's a different process. Legal processes, escalation is different. So that's what we've been following in the past. The board can always review those rules and procedures if they feel there's something that is a problem.
Okay. So how does that relate then to the chickens?
Well, the chickens, Catherine, I'm going to correct you just a little bit on your history.
Okay, fine.
The chickens were reported, but I believe for quite a while they could not be observed by Sage Management. But we actually had the owners of that property came to a Zoom meeting, the owners of the chickens, and gave what I recall a very long explanation of why they got the chickens because of the pandemic. And I believe the DRC was receptive to those reasonings. And we left the owners with the impression that the board was going to consider, the DRC was going to consider whether there could be a possible exception to enforcement for certain chicken circumstances per se, not all animals at once. That was, to my knowledge, never really pursued very far. So that was the original reason it was put on hold. Later, the emotional support issue was raised. I don't recall if it was raised by them or someone else that put it in a different category. So the original hold was based upon the DRC believing that perhaps they needed to carve out an exception for chickens. City of Austin favors chickens and eggs. And so we had a very long discussion at that meeting. So certainly we know the owners were on a meeting, I forget what month. So we know the chickens were there at that time, verified per the owner.
Then what I remember was this whole issue about emotional support animals coming to light. And I sent an email to Bill asking him to verify the legality of this because I considered emotional support animals to be sort of a faux thing, you know, in context of, you know, being able to bring your peacocks onto planes, etc. And what Bill's research found was that there was this actual federal law carve out as it relates to housing. And so that's how we've ended up where we are today, is that there is federal law supporting the whole concept of emotional support animals. And that's what agenda item 7 is all about.
Yeah,
so
I think the only concern is that I guess I have a couple of concerns with respect to, and I was at the meeting where the residents with the chickens came and spoke. I guess my one concern I have is that I guess I should ask first, has anybody talked to recently, been in contact with the folks with the chickens to kind of because, and I might be remembering this wrong, but I feel like I remember them also being kind of suggesting that they'd be willing to do whatever's necessary to try to get the deed restrictions amended in their section. There was kind of this back and forth discussion with the board, and it was kind of understood, I think at the time, that right now the deed restrictions say no chickens, but you know, you as the resident could amend your deed.
Right.
And I feel like my memory at least is that they were like, oh, we'd be willing to do that. So I guess I'm curious if anyone's been in contact with them because I'm worried that there's just been a breakdown in communication with this particular situation, because certainly the guy who sent the email to all of us is feeling like he doesn't know what's going on and no one's doing anything. And so regardless of where we are in terms of sorting out how we deal with that, I think one thing that I just hope we can address is how we communicate with both of these parties.
Right. Okay. So let's officially move on to agenda item 7 and talk about the whole resolution. So, because as I said earlier, I was surprised when Bill came back and said, hey, there really is something here about in the Fair Housing Act that about reasonable accommodation for emotional support animals. So they're not like service animals.
Well, they are service animals. They just provide a different service.
Well, they're not service animals in this, in the sense that we think about, the seeing eye dogs, et cetera, that go through an unbelievable amount of very specific training. These service animals do their service by sitting on your lap and
They're
snuggling with you.
emotional support animals.
Yeah. So, okay. So has everybody had a chance to read, to look at the resolution?
Yes.
I like I said, I really didn't think this was a thing.
Can I ask if we have any emotional support documentation presented by any residents so far?
Yes.
We do?
The Christy, who's on the line, has submitted documentation, and let me read the what we have is, okay, so what she has done is she has sent the letter from her licensed mental health professional, which supports, so she's done section 1, has done this, and she did it actually, it might be in November. So the question becomes, so after we receive it, then we have to do section 2. So we have received from one resident, the documentation for their emotional support animals. What I think we need to have, in addition to this resolution, is that we have to have a process on the website that tells you how to, submit your information, et cetera, to get your waiver. So
the resolution that you wrote leaves it wide open for you to make the rules. I'd like to suggest that if you are going to entertain emotional support of any kind of animal, that you follow the HUD and the FHA, the already fully fleshed out emotional support animal documents, all the rules, all that stuff. Because the way you've written your resolution, you can make rules as you want to. Whereas these documents, they're already done. I think the only way to do this fairly is to follow the rules for emotional support that have already been vetted and work for all other housing areas and developments.
Okay, so Bill, let's talk about that. How is this resolution different from what she's talking about?
Linda, are you referring to application forms? And
I didn't really have much time with it today, Bill, but what I did look at is that the HUD site has very specific guidelines like, okay, you can have and I'm making stuff up because I didn't read the details, but you can have this emotional support animal, but if you live in a suburban area, then you have to have X number of feet between the next property, or, there's other things that make it okay for you to have this animal as long as you are not impacting your neighbors. So there's real strict guidelines about the distance between, let's say, your animal and your neighbor's dog or your neighbor's fence. Those things are laid out in great detail. And I think if you're going to try to do this, then you need to follow those same regulations and rules that have been laid out by HUD and laid out by the FHA. Because if you do that, nobody can argue back that you made special rules for somebody, or that you made up rules that are inconsistent with what these other regulators have already put in place. I'd like to stay consistent with the rest of the world and not have special rules made that we can't defend.
Okay, but I don't think we're making special rules. Aren't we talking about following, because this is sort of a deed restriction and process.
I think the issue, because I had the same exact thought, is this section 2 where it says after receipt of a written request from a resident and the accompanying letter, blah, 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 the board will consider the request at the next available board meeting. And so my question was, well, what does it mean to consider? Does that mean you can deny it?
Well,
and on what
I
grounds?
I don't think that we can deny somebody an emotional support animal. Am
You
I
certainly can if it doesn't conform to the regulations for caring for that animal, for the respect of your neighbor's property. Like, for instance, and I'm just going to really put this out there. If you lived in a tiny house and you had 3 feet between your neighbor's property and yours, you could not have this emotional support animal. You wouldn't have enough distance between. It's one thing for you to need that emotional support. It's not fair for your emotional needs to become a nuisance to your neighbor. And so these other agencies have written in very explicit detail of how to be considerate of your neighbor's need and still get your needs met as well. And I think that needs to be looked at really closely before we have a resolution, because if we adopt their rules, then we'll be fine going forward. We won't get in any kind of quagmire where somebody says, oh, I've got an emotional support, and you wouldn't honor it. No, we're going to follow the rules that everybody else is using. We don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. Let's use the things that work. These things work.
Okay, so Bill, what's your opinion
We
here?
do the FHA though, our properties are definitely not big enough for a farm or a ranch, or
That's a federal
our houses are all
housing
like bumper to
authority.
bumper.
That's not farm, that's the Federal Housing Authority.
Federal
Okay.
housing. Okay,
So-
I thought you were talking about farmers.
No.
It's like,
So
but
Catherine,
she has a letter from a doctor. So doesn't that change things a little bit? It's
Okay,
not
go
a
ahead.
veterinarian, it's a doctor.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Bill.
so Catherine, I think I would like a little more opportunity to investigate the details that might be available under the HUD rules. We're in this resolution, we are covering reasonable accommodation, which is the basic. We have to make a reasonable accommodation. But I would recommend we table this till I can review the aspects that Linda's referring to see if they're applicable to us, first of all, and whether it would work. And I would suggest we table this till the 27th meeting.
Right, and that's fine. What I'm really concerned about is really getting caught in sort of a catch-22, because I really feel that we don't have a choice. We have to have a policy about on this issue. But I'm also really concerned that that federal regulation is going to make it really cumbersome for us to try to follow. And so that's what's really sort of scaring me at this point.
Don't be scared, Catherine. It's not that bad.
Well, it can get real. I'm concerned that it's going to get really complicated if we
It's not,
start
I
having to
promise. I
start
promise.
having to actually know how far apart things are.
Catherine, it's there to protect us as well as them. Okay. It's not insurmountable. It's not any more difficult. It really lays it out so it's fair for everyone. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, so do you think that
Catherine
you're
and I
gonna,
can look at that. But,
okay,
you know, then we're getting into pigs and horses and everything else. So we just have to look at it all.
Aren't we already, isn't that already on the table with this emotional support animal?
yeah, we're not allowed to make any judgments about what the animal is.
So we're already looking at, in my mind, it protects the person with the animal as much as the neighbor. Because if you're told, well, you can have your pig or whatever it is, but you still, because we talked about this last time, they still have to adhere to nuisance law and stuff, right, Bill? So like,
Yes,
so-
all the deed restriction, other deed restriction violations apply. Nuisance, sound, smell, waste.
So
Yeah.
it helps outline for the animal owner too, maybe some things that can help them keep their animal with and avoid, violating other things that will cause grief.
Right. I agree. And the one thing that I remember about the HUD rules that was interesting too is in the emotional support animal arena, the mental health professional also describes why, for instance, a dog or a cat cannot provide the same emotional support as this unusual animal, whatever it is. If it's a peacock, it doesn't matter. That's also part of the requirement. Otherwise, like Beth suggested, I could get a horse and put it in my backyard, and that's my emotional support animal. There's really very strict guidelines, that documentation that's required, so that you can't just do that. There has to be a true bona fide and valid need. And I'm not denying that this woman does not have that. I'm just saying, if we're going to be fair, which we really need to be fair, then let's follow rules that have already been vetted, and let's do it right. Let's do it right the first time, because and I'm sure many of you know, the neighborhood is loaded with chickens, which creates another whole problem.
So, I just had something that I was going to say and it just flew out of my head.
My whole thing is, if we had roosters, it would be a much bigger problem. If they have chickens, they're quiet. We have roosters, then I think it's going to change everything.
Right.
I don't want a rooster next door at 4:30 in the morning.
Well,
Okay,
actually, this
so-
man said he sent an audio file of the noise. Apparently, I don't know anything about poultry other than when it's on my
Eggs.
plate.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
But my point is this: there is a neighbor that is being bothered by this, that has done everything in the process that he's supposed to do, and he's gotten no satisfaction. I appreciate how concerned you were for the neighbors of 3104 Birch, and I don't understand why you're not as concerned about this gentleman who has reached out to you every single month for 9 months. He's beyond frustrated, as I can certainly appreciate.
So this is the question. Are we going to have to define the composition of the letter from the mental health professional that we will accept? Bill?
Well, we define it in part in the resolution, but again, give me the opportunity to
Okay.
dig a little deeper as to what the, if I look at the HUD rules that Linda's referring to, and if they're applicable, we may have some more guidelines to add to our resolution.
Okay. Well, that's all we can do then. Okay.
So are we saying that this resolution applies to Hannah K?
That was where we were going.
Okay.
is that this was how, what had been revealed when we started dealing with emotional support animals.
And Megan, while you're thinking, this can also apply to the pig on Birch.
Yes, I
And
sort of made that leap. I get that issue is already kind of in the works. But my concern with the chicken issue is that it's, you know, it's just sitting out there and like, so I guess I'm just trying to understand what's going on with that and how can we communicate, make sure we're communicating to both parties what's going on with that and why it doesn't look like any enforcement activities happening there right now.
Because it isn't. But you know what I'd like to suggest? If that woman Christie's still on the line, I would beg her to do the work to get her neighbors to sign a petition to change the deed. She happens to live in a section where she can get that done any time of the year. If she'll put in the work and she can get a vote, she can keep her chickens and we don't have to worry about emotional support. She can literally write it out of the deed.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other half of my kind of concern is because I feel like that was part of the original discussion.
I don't recall her offering to do that, but I think that's a wonderful idea. How do you solve your own problem? You get your neighbors to agree with you, and then you walk the streets and you get those signatures. And I think she lives in section 17, so she only needs what, 26 signatures? 26 people to agree that her chickens are not a bother.
Catherine, can we ask her if she has a roost?
Yeah, I don't believe she has.
Catherine, can we ask her while she's on the phone,
Sure.
or while she's on here, if she has a rooster or not?
What
Can we
difference does
ask
that
her
make?
that question? I know she's on the call.
What difference does that make, Beth?
Because a rooster is a lot louder than a chicken.
Well, what difference does that make?
Because roosters are loud.
It doesn't matter because both are not allowed by the
Well,
deed.
because
See, and from an emotional support animal policy, it's not going to make any difference whether it's a male or a female of whatever we're talking about. So,
Well, it would make a difference insofar as, you know, most restrictions, zoning code restrictions, or whatever it may be, municipal code restrictions that relate to chickens typically say no roosters. So, so the reason that matters though is that if the person who has the animal still can't violate other deed restrictions, at bare minimum, there needs to be some communication that, like, if your animal is a rooster, there may be some issues because the rooster is going to cause noise that, you know, be above and beyond, you know, what a hen is going to produce.
and if we're going to change the deed, which is affecting several of us on this call, because we all live within about 150 feet of her. I mean, it would make a difference if everybody started going out and getting all chickens and roosters. So, you know, it's a big difference, Linda.
It's well, I wouldn't be a bit surprised, but it's whatever signature she can get to amend the deed. We don't get to decide that. The people who vote decide that.
Yeah.
Has anyone, I'm just, you know, if it were me, like and I were the resident, I would have no idea where to start with amending the deed. So I know that we can't offer her, you know, Bill can't offer legal advice, all of that. But I don't want to just kind of leave them out there like, you're gonna have to amend your deed, good luck to you. You know, like I feel like if we could help at least reach out and help, you know, people understand how to go about doing that. I just feel like we're in the leadership position to do that. If we're enforcing the deed. So I don't know.
Maybe the DRC can write up the process. It's really not complicated.
Yeah.
And it's actually contained inside of your deed. I mean, there is instructions on, you
Yeah.
need a vote and
Yeah. But
the
it's
form,
clear
you can
that-
actually Google the form. The form is online
Yeah.
and then it gets filed in the courthouse and it's done.
Yeah. I just don't want to take for granted that we have some knowledge that the average person doesn't have, that sometimes we forget we even know where to look, or, or have an understanding of what some of the terminology means, or, I just never want to assume that what I know, everybody else would think was clear.
Well, maybe the DRC committee can write a process for her. And if she wants to do that, if she wants to go to the trouble to amend the deed, that's an option. That's an option for her. And it should be considered. I think she would have a lot of very happy neighbors. It's easier than we've spent so much time on one family's special request, where we've got hundreds of families who have been sent letters about violations and are paying fines, and we won't take 5 minutes to talk about them. There's something wrong here. There's something seriously wrong here.
Okay, so I think we're in agreement that we're going to that Bill's going to take the resolution back, find out if there is anything at the federal level that we need to interject into our resolution in our process.
Correct. And the idea would be to bring it back on the 27th for reconsideration.
Okay. Agenda item 8, presentations by Anderson Mill West Neighborhood Association, Hunters Glen HOA, Lane Oaks HOA, and Valente Hills HOA. And we have the current president of the Anderson Mill West Neighborhood Association on here. So Melvin, you're up. What did you want to talk about? I'm sorry that this has taken so long to get to you.
No. This has been enlightening, and I think it reinforces a lot of the things that I want to present to the MUD board. First and foremost, thank you for allowing me to speak. I've had a chance over the last month and a half to speak with some of the neighbors. And I've had the actual benefit of not knowing what the heck I'm doing. So I had to get in there and do some research. I've had some, before I continue, I've had some very in-depth conversations that have shed light on what they expect from the AMWANA and what we actually elected all of you to do. And so, using a term that I think Linda will understand, quality assurance. I was in the Air Force. I was a pararescueman, and regardless of how elite and specialized we were always looking to cut costs, streamline strategies so that the overall mission and vision were accomplished with the least amount of life lost and the execution of the mission done proficiently. There are a lot of 50-cent words in there. So I would first like to acknowledge that my understanding where it stands right now, and I always pay particular focus of where there's money. And so I recognize that the AMWANA, they pay their dues, and the right to pay dues is the fact that you live in the neighborhood. I think that is counterproductive. If you live in the neighborhood, your voice, whether you pay for it or not, was heard when we all elected the board members. And so I have a little bit of a problem being the president where I'm already excluding certain people's voices from anything that we put forward. That being said, the money thing is what I've zeroed in on. I'm a law enforcement officer, and where there is conflict of interest, there could always potentially be legal implications or problems. And so it's my understanding, and please interrupt me at any point, it's my understanding that the ACC or the DRC, they they do their rounds and fines are assessed based on multiple violations or whatever the process is. That money is then, the checks are then sent to the MUD board. A portion of the MUD that sends a check to the AMWANA for beautification.
Well, hold on. Let
before-
me stop you here a little bit, because what we're talking about is an accounting process. Is that the MUD board, MUD many years ago, made the decision to create what they call a beautification fund. And in that fund, they apportioned money from recycling and from fines. And that money is just, it's an accounting thing, meaning
Okay.
that it's sitting there, but it is not sent to the neighborhood. It's not sent to the HOAs. It's there for the Andersonville West Neighborhood Association and for the 3 different HOAs, for them to use for processes to beautify the neighborhood. Okay.
All right, so like I said, bear with me on this. I'm trying to understand. So the money is collected from fines from the neighbors, in turn to then have projects that are decided by the MWANA board, which they still need to go for permission to spend that money back to the MUD.
Correct.
Okay, so to me, in the spirit of streamlining and recognizing there is a conflict of interest there, we're going back to the elected official aspect. I believe that MWANA should not be touching the money at all. We are all constituents, and even my proposals, each member could come on to this particular meeting, present their ideas, and collectively as a board, you could vote on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. Meaning, here's my problem, and I'm, like I said, I'm trying to wrap my head around it in the interest of everyone in the neighborhood. I have a difficult time with my newly assumed duties stepping in to a role that seems to be what your role already is. You all actually have conversations every month, maybe a couple, and you decide on what's best for the neighborhood. You monitor our deeds, you assess the fines, but ultimately, if somebody has an idea in the neighborhood, we all still come back to you for that authorization. If that's the case, then I'm a redundancy in the efforts of what you all are already trying to do. For instance, safety. I have an idea for a neighborhood watch program that I think benefits everyone. In order to do that, I think I'm in a good position to assist you as the district if you're willing to support that idea. I listened to one of my neighbors speak about a village concept for the 1,800 homes that we all represent. And I liked the idea, the concept, but that means we have to bring in federal funding, stand up our own police force, all these things. It's not viable. But what is viable is we have a safety concern or an issue in Anderson Mill, which is when we dial 911, we don't know whether we're getting Williamson County. We don't know whether we're getting Travis County. We have Cedar Park, which is right down the street, who argues with us, with their operators, and the time delays in response. It depreciates our safety value for any of us. It would seem more logical of what can we do as a district to petition the city of Cedar Park to either incorporate us or come up with some type of an agreement where we're not having to fight between Travis and Williamson County just to have a policeman arrive. And I'm speaking specifically starting with our elementary school. The elementary school dials 911 and they're going back and forth between Travis and County when Cedar Park's right down the street. This is something that affects all of us. But I'm telling you that as a neighbor, not as a president. I don't have to be a president to present that idea. And ultimately, it would still come down to the board voting on whether that was something y'all wanted to do. So I have a couple of things. That's just one idea. I think we need to streamline the money. I think if there's an account that should have the AMWANA involved, I think that needs to be depleted and sent back to the board, the MUD board, and you all need to control anything that's financial. Number one, that alleviates any speculation that there could be anything corrupt or conflict of interest. It immediately wipes out contention within the 1,800 homes that are a part of your constituency. Right now, there is a lawsuit pending between or against the MUD and the AMWANA. And I got an email from an attorney's office the other day, and it was saying that they needed half the funding to pay, and that there was some type of agreement made. And even looking at what little money is in the account, there's absolutely no way for the AMWANA to pay for that. And so I did reach out to Lewis. I'm like, hey man, what is this? And he's like, oh, well, here's what it is. Well, this AMWANA can't assume that responsibility. So we don't need the lawyers is essentially what I'm saying, but I'll get back to that. And I just want your thoughts, because I've heard a lot of things over the last 2 hours, and I want you to know, in the middle of it, I'm hearing a lot of great things, but there is one consistent thing I continue to hear, and that is, I don't know. Let's get back to that. I don't know. And I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but one of the things is each of you as elected officials represents all of us equally. I appreciate some of the points raised by Linda that talks about what's good for the goose is good for the gander, or what's good for the chicken is good for the pig. I think that I understand a lot more in recognition of the equality and unity that we all want. And so where there can be discretion, even I as a law enforcement officer know that a $200 speeding ticket is not necessarily the best response for someone who's trying to rush their dog to the hospital because they're about to die, and they're trying to get the help that they need, versus a kid who's drag racing through the neighborhood type thing. I'm trying to make that correlation. I think discretion, you are an elected board that should exercise discretion for all of us equally. And I'm trying to take advantage of this time that I am being given as a president, because if I did it in the public forum, I would only be given 2 minutes, regardless of my point. And I think there needs to be a way that we can at least meet or speak with board members outside of this forum, where we can have those good working collaborative conversations. Like I said, I really learned some things this past week that I think Sage is doing the best they can with what they have. I think that there's things that could be done and met to make sure that the transparency is there. I look at my role as a president with this organization that I know nothing about, but I'm doing research, that I'm actually undermining what you all represent. And it's stressful, not in the sense that it can't be done. It's stressful because no matter what I decide or do, I've still got to run it through you. And I would like to see, Linda made a point earlier. She said that she could leave her trash cans out all night. Well, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but there should not be a disparity between sections. So I'm not speaking for the other presidents. I don't know what those other presidents are doing, nor do I want to impede on them. But I would also like to know that if our side of the neighborhood is being afforded allocations, that they're being afforded those same allocations, and that we're not impeding on our ability to, I don't know, live happy. I know where I owe my apologies. I also know where I've come to the board and thanked them just because of different things that have come up, and I'm gracious for that. At the same token, I think neighborly, a lot of the problems that we have could dissipate if we streamline these homeowners organizations. And one of my neighbors called it a social club, and I couldn't disagree with them, because I'm not elected in the traditional sense that we went to the polls for you. I really would like for each of you to think about, how do we pull less interaction? And this is going to be where I close. I've gotten numerous emails this past week, people asking about deed restrictions. And I'm like, I don't know about any of that stuff. Why are you coming to me? The emails and the Facebooks and all those things were being transferred over to me. I haven't had a chance to update them, but just even hearing this conversation this evening, I recognize, why would they come to me in the first place? Because I have a label, or my association has a label for a function that it does not do. Therefore, I am not only hindering my neighbors from getting to where they need to be, I'm actually creating a sense of insecurity that I believe you all could focus. I think I've said enough. I would like you to consider my thoughts as a quality assurance, meaning you are the quality, you are the assurance. You are who we elected. I believe that there should be less onus put on the homeowners association. Actually, I don't think there should be any onus put on us, except a community where I can sit down and talk with my neighbor and neighbors. And if they would like for me to articulate what we've agreed upon, or a petition where we could come on, all of this is recorded, which I think is fantastic. And then we have it for the record. And then you guys can meet and decide for all of us between all of it. Because if you're going to make a decision for one side, then it should be equally made to the other sides, where perhaps we as presidents are just presenting the ideas of those folks who want to interact with us. Now, as I learn more, I will try to bring more and sound more intelligent, but just with what little I know and the critical thinking that I'm employing, I really think we need to look at how we're doing business. Starts with transparency. Transparency is streamlining money. Get money to where it's centrally located and can be accounted for. However you want to account for your business transactions as a MUD, guess what? I voted for you to make those decisions. And I think it's culpable if something goes wrong. It shouldn't fall on lay people in the neighborhood who are just trying to do a volunteer function. I've waited to present the idea today. I've tried to reach out, and that's okay, because I knew that what I was talking about, it needed to be put on a public forum. But I wanted to make sure I was in the right direction, and I think I am. So thank you, each of you. If you have any questions, I'm more than willing to do my best and answer them. But like I said earlier, when I first came on, I'm a law enforcement officer in the state of Texas, and I'm here for each of you, each of us, in a neutral manner. I don't know one person more than the other. I do know that I've learned a lot through qualified conversations with my neighbors, and felt like I was able to lay to rest different points of contention that were just through misunderstandings. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we ask that, Catherine?
Yeah, go ahead.
If he sends that money back and it's not in the budget for this year, how will he pay for the October events, the July events, like 4th of July and Halloween? And how would he do like movies in the park? How would all that be funded if he doesn't want to hold?
Don't those things have to be approved through the MUD anyway?
No,
Or
those
can
are,
I,
those are
can I
events.
do it just on my own?
Yeah, the neighborhood associations handles those are events that you put on your own, that is put on your own.
The only difference, Melvin, first of all, let me congratulate you for your new position. I did not realize there was an election for a new president for Amwana. I didn't see the sign or the notice. And I live in Anderson Mill West. It totally missed me. The money that you're referring to, that you are correct, it does come from deed violation fines. And the way the resolution is written, that money where the fine is generated is then given to either the formal HOA or Amwana if the fines were collected in Anderson Mill West. The problem is, or the problem that I've always seen, is Amwana's membership is less than 1% of Anderson Mill West. So only the members of Amwana get the benefit of that money. The other 99% do not have access to that money, although many of those fines were collected off their property. There's
Correct.
also an issue with Hunters Glen 2, who has no HOA and no neighborhood association, and fines collected in their section they don't have access to at all, ever. So
that's wrong.
I like what you've presented. I like the idea. Beth's point that I think that she's trying to make is that historically, Amwana would do a social event, Easter egg, Halloween, whatever it was, and they would come to the board and they would ask the board for money from that fund, that discretionary account, and then the MUD board would fund that activity. Again, I remind you, the membership at that time was 75 members. And as you might be aware, Anderson Mill West has over 900 homes in it. So the representation was not equal. That is a concern. I don't
Well,
necessarily know.
Everybody has always been invited.
It doesn't matter about that. It doesn't matter. I'm saying the membership of that organization was not representative of the entire Anderson Mill West community. That's an issue that we have, that those of us that are not members have no voice. Like, I didn't get to vote for you because I'm not a member. Yet you're going to represent my piece of the neighborhood. You have to understand that doesn't sit so well. I want a voice in the people who speak to my property, who make decisions about my property. I need to have some voice in who those people are.
So I agree.
You're welcome to join it. Anybody's welcome to join it.
See, all right. So that's what I'm saying, though. I think there needs to be a reset on this whole thing. Because I didn't even know that we had a neighborhood association until my wife started talking to people and people were calling her. And I've been putting all of this together. And I like what we're all trying to do. And there's an underlying theme here, which is everyone wants to do what's best for the neighborhood. Equal, fair. We all want to be treated, represented. We want our property to be able to, we want to have a nice neighborhood. We do not want it to go, no pun intended, we don't want it to go to the chickens and pigs, okay? Because that will depreciate any value that we have or any future prospects of enhancing the overall value of the neighborhood. Maybe what I'm saying is not to just get rid of the money. What I am saying, though, is a meeting beyond this one has to sit down, and I believe there needs to be a collaborative decision made from you for all of these HOA, everybody. The bottom line is, okay, if we haven't been paying attention to the news, fair representation is causing a mass freaking freak out across the nation. If you're white, if you're black, whatever. Well, I happen to be both. And I'm caught in the middle as the law enforcement officer. So there is no side to choose. But what is right is that everybody should have a say. And I don't think that if being a member, I shouldn't have to pay $5 to be a member. If I live in this neighborhood, I'm a member. And so that's one of the, no,
No, because here's, and this is the crux of my problem here. I don't want a voluntary neighborhood association telling me how to live on my property. My deed does not force me to have to abide by their rules. They
Correct.
happen to house the ACC and are making rules that impact my property. I'm not.
So we're saying this.
Yeah,
So
but
no, we're saying the same thing. What I'm saying is that by living here, we have a vote.
Yeah.
And you're the voted elected officials. And so I agree with what Linda's saying. What I'm saying is I shouldn't have to pay an additional $5 to get things going that may not represent all constituents that voted for you. And so I know that my position is controversial because it's a little bit more progressive, but in the spirit of having a voice, everybody has a voice. The voice was heard in the election, and that's where the decisions for the district, all of these little subsets are getting in the way of a part of the neighborhood that's not being represented. And so I relent the rest of my time. It's food for thought. I'm laying it out there. That's what I'd like to do. That's what I would like to see.
I would like to please clarify something, because I don't like the repeated characterization that the neighborhood association, that is the executive committee, that is the position that you are in now, Melvin, is telling residents what to do with their property. They have no legal right to do that. They have never done that. They have never, at least for a very, very, very long time, been involved in deed restriction enforcement.
Correct.
The ACC is not the executive committee of the neighborhood association. The ACC is defined by the deed restrictions. It existed long before the neighborhood association had anything to do with it. The only connection the neighborhood association has with the ACC is that, and I don't know whether this was the right decision or not. I'm beginning to think it was not, and beginning to think as in years ago. Nevertheless, it was brought under the neighborhood association just for the purpose of trying to make it more fair and equitable, because up until that time, it was just self-perpetuating.
Right.
The goal was actually, whether or not it worked out or not, the goal was to make it more equitable. The fact remains that the ACC is a separate committee. The decisions of the members of the ACC are not influenced by the executive committee of the neighborhood association. So I just want to make sure that's clear, because there's been a lot of misunderstanding over the years. Understandably, people see neighborhood association and they think that the neighborhood association has some sort of authority over them. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
And she's absolutely right. And let me clarify. Because I think I may have misstated that a little bit. In order to vote for the membership of the ACC, you have to be a member of AMWANA. Okay.
That is correct.
Sitting here without being a member of AMWANA, I don't have a voice in who sits on the ACC. My deed gives me a voice in that without having to be a member of any association.
Although
that's where we're kind of, I think, crossing hairs here.
Yeah. But it didn't before, because before it was just self-perpetuating. So then nobody had a say.
Every section had their own.
Well, yeah, I don't know how far back. I don't think it was every section had their own.
No, well, that's how the deeds were written. I'm not suggesting that's how it went, but that's how the deeds were written.
So I think I've achieved my job, which was to put it out on the table. I think that you all need to offline be able to take this and have a new conversation about how the HOA, if they are to remain, works in conjunction as an assisting element to the MUD. And I don't know how to figure out the ACC. Please don't get upset at me because of my ignorance. I'm learning as fast as I can. And it's not easy doing everything through Zoom nowadays. Okay, I'm learning, I'm holding my phone here, trying to figure it out. But what I do know is that we have in our neighborhood too much conflict over things that I think could be simplified. And I think it would be more helpful from us to you and you to us. That's my goal. So thank you for your time. If you have any more questions for me, I will take them. Otherwise, I'm going to go put these kids in bed.
Okay. Well,
Thank you, Melvin.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to come to our meeting tonight.
All right. God bless you guys. Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item 9, communication with and recommendations from the ACCs. And I do not believe we have anybody on the line tonight from the ACC.
Isn't Chris Lambert on the line?
Oh, is he on?
Who's he? Is he an ACC?
I don't know. Which organization are
I'm
you with?
here. I'm with the Hunters Glen HOA. I'm actually
Okay.
the newly elected president.
Oh, you're the newly elected president. Congratulations.
Second
So
time
since you're
around.
here, is there anything that we'll stay with agenda item 8. Is there anything that you wanted to discuss?
No, I'll just make that let y'all know that Julie is she's still on the board for another year, but she is no longer the president. So I'll probably be y'all's point of contact if y'all have anything. And just in regard to the last speaker, I just wanted to kind of say, it's, and I think again, we get caught up in these meetings and we talk, it focuses on MUANA, and I'm not familiar with how that one's run. But Hunters Glen is very much like a traditional HOA, and I think that gets lost in the miscus of some of this stuff. And so I just want to throw that out there. But thank y'all for what y'all do.
Okay.
Thank you. And Chris Lambert, I think it's real important to note that Hunters Glen 1 is a very bona fide HOA, mandatory membership, mandatory dues. And WANA is not. It's a voluntary organization.
And that was my point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And that's what I guess wasn't always clear to me. And so it sounds like sometimes it gets caught in the rigmarole that this is happening, and yet ours is run very much like a regular HOA. And so I just want to make sure if any of our members are going back in this, they don't get the wrong idea of how it's being run.
I get it.
Okay.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, I will be reaching out to you. Okay. Okay, agenda item, I'll jump back to 9. So communication with and recommendations from the ACCs. I left this on there even though there's rarely any of the ACCs here, but I figured we might as well just keep it on there in case something shows up that way. So unless there's an ACC person here who wants to talk to us, I'm going to move on. Okay, agenda item 10. This is request from Anderson Mill West Neighborhood Association, Hunters Glen HOA, Lake Lane Oaks HOA, and Valente Hills HOA related to deed restriction enforcement. This again is another standing item, and I don't think, Chris, since you're still on the line, I'll ask you, did you have any deed restriction enforcement issues that you wanted to discuss?
Actually, now that you bring it up, it's been brought up, and I still need to consult with my executive board, but it's been brought up by several members of my neighborhood, and so I have the right information going forward. There's been a kind of big push among a lot of my neighbors that they would like to waive the enforcement of the overnight parking. How would we go about something like that? And the reason being is that especially people with small children, they're trying to push strollers and cars are blocking sidewalks and stuff like that. And so most of the members I've talked to just don't see overnight parking as a big of an issue, as they'd rather have clear sidewalks.
Okay, so is that something that you can do by amending your deeds?
Yes,
Well, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
can be.
easily in a HOA, it's much easier than us.
Well, it's not necessarily easier, but because you have to have meetings on at least annual meetings. But the easiest way to deal with that would be to get your neighborhood to remove that from their deed restrictions, and then they would just that would just drop off the enforcement process on our end.
I guess that's part. I mean, we're already dealing with another issue because we're trying to get rid of that land that we have, and getting member participation has been. I almost ended up as the only member on our board.
Really? Well, that's
So,
not a good thing. That's not a
yes.
good thing.
No.
Okay.
Chris, let me
And
help
so,
you. Let me
I
give
guess-
you a little pro tip here. Basically, you go door to door with a petition and a notary, and you ask them with the language printed on every form the same, and you ask them if they are willing to amend the deed to remove that restriction. And with the HOA, it's a little bit higher than a 51% majority that you're going to need to get. Your deed will describe clearly how many votes you're going to need. But once you have the majority, you file in the courthouse and you have an amended deed. It's pretty simple.
No, and I understand that process, but part of it and the reason I bring this up is that when we kind of went through this process a year or two ago, and part of it was we made a deal with the MUD to use Sage Management for our deed restriction enforcement. And so I'm asking and that operated originally under, we kind of gave a list of here's how we want it enforced. And is that still the case? Because that's simpler to do through executive committee than trying to go through all the houses. Because unfortunately, I think it takes 66 of my 85 houses to amend my deed restrictions.
Wow, that's a large percentage.
And the sad majority is a large number of our houses, or a larger number, are renters. And so trying to track down physical owners isn't just door to door.
It's problematic. You could do it that way. Of course, Bill always tells us you have a right to not enforce. Then you just have to deal with the oddball residents that call you and complain because somebody's parked in the street, and you'll have to deal with them individually, but you don't have to enforce the deed.
Okay, so
I guess let me clarify this. So for another way is that if we as an executive board, can we say that we'd prefer that Sage Management not enforce overnight parking in our area? Would that be sufficient for y'all?
Well, that was going to be my
And
question.
I'm not saying
to
at this
Bill.
point, but I'm just asking the question.
How do we go about dealing with that, Bill?
Okay. So historically, there has been a period of time where, Chris, your association, Hunters Glen, has requested the district not enforce any restrictions in your neighborhood, and you had your own management company doing it. And then more recently, you've asked the district to enforce the restrictions, and the district, as a MUD, has the authority to enforce deed restrictions, but not the obligation to enforce. However, if deed restrictions are not enforced over a period of time, they could be legally waived. So, and I thought in the past you guys had an attorney, but it's more legal advice than anything as to whether or not you want to not enforce a restriction and then have restrictions waived. And sometimes the restrictions can be combined in your declaration with other similar provisions. So, if you carve out overnight parking, you need to make sure it's not combined with some other provisions that might also get waived. And Linda's right, you're going to have people perhaps complain that there's no enforcement. Now, that's HOA enforcing in the HOA. Once you transition to the MUD is enforcing restrictions. We do have to enforce the same restriction in a similar manner throughout the district. So your restriction says no overnight parking. If you say don't enforce overnight parking in Hunters Glen, we're going to have to analyze that very closely to see if that impacts our enforcement in other areas. So I don't have an immediate answer for you. What I would request is the HOA send something in writing for us to evaluate as a board as to whether we could actually honor that. And I think it needs to come from your board.
And that's fine. That's what I was looking for. You answered my question.
And Chris, can I ask, just because I know that in our neighborhood over here, all the streets are different. Some streets are wider than other streets, but I can tell you that my car has been hit if I've ever had it in the street, because we can't get out of our driveways if there's a car on the street. So just something to think about for your neighborhood. It may not be the same as over here.
I mean, ours really, for the most part, is just, I mean, it's loops, and the only main street that anybody on the neighborhood is on Sunchase, and y'all know how wide that is. Everything else is cul-de-sacs and whatnot. And so that's why I think the fact that we didn't enforce it for so long, people got used to it. And then when we switched over and started enforcing it, it's caused a lot of heartburn.
It's the least favorite deed restriction
But thank you
in
for the
the
information.
entire district.
Well, it's one of those, either you love it or you hate it. There's nothing in the middle. Nothing in the middle. I mean, Valente Hills has got the most convoluted deed restriction, overnight parking rules. And I originally thought, oh, they must like this. And then when you go talk to them, they absolutely hate it.
You know, Catherine, I actually, when I looked at Melvin Alex driveway, my heart broke for him. This man has so many kids. When they all start driving, I don't know where he's going to put all those cars. Really, he's got the smallest driveway in the neighborhood, and he probably has one of the biggest families. He
Yeah,
didn't plan well.
I think he has 10 children. I think he said
did
that
not
one
plan
time.
well.
Okay, Chris, was there anything else that you wanted to ask?
No, thank you very much. That's
Okay.
it gives me some direction.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you called in. Okay, so that was agenda item 10. Agenda item 11, district rules governing violations of deed restrictions and procedures and tasks associated with enforcement of those rules. Okay, this is a standing agenda item. So this is not where, we talked about, the whole trash can thing. We cannot address the trash can when trash cans are supposed to be pulled off the street. We can't address that under this item. Are you saying that, Bill?
That's correct. These are different rules than
Okay.
you're talking about.
Okay, I don't have anything to discuss on this agenda item. Beth, did you have anything? Jimmy or Diana?
Unmute.
No.
We don't have
No.
anything. It's whatever the committee, puts forth. That's what we follow.
Okay.
I have something on this.
Okay, go ahead, Linda.
Okay, I want to be really upfront and let anyone listening know that I don't believe that the water code allows the district to use district rules outlined in the water code for deed enforcement. I believe the authority to use district rules applies to water only, but that's a later conversation. For the purpose of this discussion, let's assume that the 8 district rules regarding enforcement of the deed are being used appropriately. The rules give residents rights in this enforcement process, which are not being honored. Residents are promised fair and effective enforcement with a clear, transparent, and accessible system of rules. Not every resident in the district is given this opportunity to notify the contractor directly for an exception to the deed, thereby making the current practices unfair. If you wonder what I'm talking about, contacting the contractor directly, it has come to my attention that Sage Management has taken it upon themselves to create a text line where residents can preemptively let them know they will be violating the deed, and the contractor then offers them an exception for that infraction. The practice is inequitable, undocumented, and against anything written in the contract with Sage Management. The violation letters continue to be misleading, incomplete, and too often not in line with the deed at all. Letters that threaten to levy fines or disconnect water services for violations that are not contained inside the deed violates the rights of our residents. The resolution to apply money to the oldest balance on the account appears to be a veiled attempt to force residents' money towards fines instead of water, since you can only turn someone's water off for failure to pay water, not fines. This resolution skates on the edge of what appears to be unethical and possibly illegal. And as a new director, I would certainly like to revisit the resolution as soon as possible. For now, I would advise any resident who does not think a fine is legally grounded to make sure to mark their water payments as for water services only while they are working out the details of their fine. Although I brought this issue to the previous board's attention over a year ago, the practice of deceiving residents continues. The letters do not describe the process for residents to delay the enforcement process as required by the rights document. And for residents that are given that text line grace by the contractor, the question becomes, how long of a grace period are they getting? The chickens got 9 months so far. And how did they come to know they could have an exception? And if it is above board practice, why isn't it posted publicly on the MUD's website so everyone can take advantage of those rules?
Okay, so are you talking about the whole concept of the trailers?
No, I'm talking on the deed enforcement page is the district rules. I'm talking about those rules.
No, I'm talking about I know you're not going to like this again, but the Andersonville West Neighborhood Association, their ACC, created an interpretation to help residents who have trailers. And they are given so much time to have their trailer at their house so that they can load it. And then when they leave, they come back, they have so much time so they can unpack it and clean it before they take it away. And
you're asking me if I care about that rule? Not even a
no,
little
what
bit.
I'm telling you is that you're being misleading about this whole concept of that all you have to do is text Sage Management and then tell them that you're going to violate the rule. What is going on is that Jimmy has reached out and talked to residents about their trailer, and he says, hey, when you're going to be here, when you're going to have it here, let me know, so that he knows when the clock is going to start ticking, because they have a very specific window for them to bring their trailer in, get it loaded, get it cleaned up, vice versa.
Yeah,
So
I'm not talking about trailers, Catherine.
I know that, but you're talking about the whole concept of having communication with Sage Manage.
No, I'm talking about those neighbors that get to, for instance, and Melvin Alec is a perfect example. His family parks in the street every single night, no exception. Never less than one car. Normally it's 3 every single night. He is never on the list. He has not been on the list in 3 years. Yet everyone else in that section that parks on the street is getting letters, and there's a gentleman being sued who lives in the same section for exactly the same violation. Now,
Melvin has a police car.
It is not a police car. These are personal vehicles. It's a minivan and a Jeep. Melvin Alec is not assigned a vehicle, Beth. The DPS does not assign training officers vehicles. These are his personal vehicles. The resolution that was passed applies to vehicles as defined by the transportation code. He owns no vehicles that are bought and paid for and insured by the Department of Public Safety. So his personal vehicles on the street do not apply. The resolution is not for a class of people, it's for a class of vehicles. He is made an exception. That's what I'm saying. You have rules that you're not applying.
Was for the first responder vehicles.
Bill, would you please
they're allowed, they can't be parked in someone's driveway. A police vehicle cannot be parked in someone's driveway. It has to be parked on the street.
They are not police vehicles, Beth. They are personally registered vehicles. They have been They are insured by Melvin.
No,
Yes, they are.
Melvin's black SUV is a private
It's a
police
private
car.
vehicle. You're right. You are absolutely right. And so
Okay,
is the
so-
Jeep.
No, it's not.
And
it-
so
it
is the
it is
pickup
a
truck.
police. Yeah, it is. It's a. Never mind. I don't think she's understanding. It's not
Even
his
if-
vehicle.
Even if,
The government
even if
vehicle.
in fact, and I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, let's just assume that one of his vehicles is, 3 of his vehicles are not.
Okay, so Linda, is it
Okay.
is it your insistence that the MUD does not have the authority to enforce restrictions?
I'm sorry?
I said, is it your contention that the MUD does not have the authority to enforce deed restrictions?
Oh, of course you do. The water code gives you the authority to enforce deed restrictions when the enforcement of those restrictions by the reasonable judgment of the board can impact the value of property.
Okay, and
That's
it's
your
it's your contention that we don't have that authority, though.
No, I didn't say that at all. Of course you have that authority. My contention is that you can't use district rules to enforce something that is not clearly outlined inside of the deed. For instance, the district rules, that the last version of them, the 2020 version, you put in there this requirement that people who have to abide by the findings of the Anderson Mill West ACC. You can't do that with the district rule, in my opinion. I could
Okay.
be wrong. I've been
Okay.
wrong before, but in
Yes.
my opinion, you can't use the rules that way. When I read the water code, I see district rules as being used exclusively for creating rules about water,
Okay.
not deed, water.
Okay, so Bill, do you have any response to that accusation that you have misinterpreted the
Yeah,
rules?
Catherine, my response is that it's going to constitute legal advice. And
Yep,
we should take this up in an executive session on
okay,
the 27th.
okay. Then at the same time, let's, in executive session, let's discuss the whole issue of a board member publicly telling the residents not to pay their water bills.
I didn't say that, Catherine.
Somehow
I'm glad
our
they're
rate
recorded.
order is illegal in that we have improperly defined a rate order to that all monies are applied to the first order, to the oldest charges. And I guess, Bill, you're going to have to go ahead and in executive session, you're going to have to discuss the legal interpretation of the law that gives us the right to put fines on the water bill. Let's make that all part of the executive session.
It's a great idea.
Okay.
But let me clarify, Catherine. I didn't suggest people not pay their water bill. I suggested when they send their payments that they make a note on their payment that says for water services only.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the problem is our rate order that dictates how we accept and apply your money doesn't give us the authority to do that. You know, it's like you send the money, it gets applied to the oldest portion of your bill. That is just the way our rules work.
Could we also, during that session, just talk in general about what alternatives exist to putting deed restriction fines on a water bill versus like a lien on property, which is another, as I understand it, common way? Just so that I can understand.
We have no authority to put a lien on property absent a judgment that's abstracted and will not attach to exempt property. So the lien idea is not viable in this case. We can explore all the legal advice in executive session on options and actions. That'll have to be done in open session if the board takes any action.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you include how other districts that you work for handle this?
Other districts do not engage in deed restriction enforcement
I would really be curious to know why that is.
because they have elected not to. Just
know
like
it.
this district could decide it doesn't want to do deed restriction enforcement at all. They could. However, I think it's been driven historically by the fact there is no enforcement authority in a vast majority of the district, being Anderson Mill West.
Right.
The other areas that have mandatory associations, and certainly other districts that have mandatory associations, have left it up to the HOAs. So I think that's why this district has been focused more on deed restriction enforcement probably since 1994. And the methods of enforcement have changed. Rather than just all lawsuits, we have this process.
So
That's why other districts don't do it.
Can I assume then that the other districts you work for are primarily districts that are filled with HOA properties?
Yeah, they're covered entirely by HOAs that are mandatory. Yes.
So the HOAs are, if any deed enforcement is occurring, it's being done by the HOA and not by the MUD.
Right. Correct.
Okay, I get that.
Okay.
Could I just have an observation, and I'm wondering if as a board we could maybe try to figure out how to do this. I feel like there's been a lot of stuff with everything, but with deed restriction enforcement in particular, a lot of ideas, a lot of this needs to be improved, this needs to be improved, this needs to be looked at, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the poor deed restriction enforcement committee is just 2 people. It's a lot to kind of go through. And I'm just wondering if in the interest of actually trying to, as a board, address some of these issues that we've identified as, needing another look, if there's some way that we can try to streamline this, or I don't know if we can somehow come up with these are all of the issues that, we've brought up so far, and then try to figure out how to kind of tick through those rather than just being like, take care of this, deed restriction enforcement committee, take care of this, deed restriction, and then it's like next month, if the poor 2 people on the deed restriction board haven't gotten to all of those items, it's like, well, why haven't you addressed this yet? And so I just feel like that it's kind of like causing problems between us because we can't really get anything effectively and efficiently done. So I'm just wondering if
Well, I think the part of it is that it's going that what Catherine and I do every month is we go through it all, and then what needs to go to legal goes to legal, and then we have to wait for that to come back. So it's not that there's not enough people on the committee, because I don't think that it's overwhelming. I mean, I haven't felt it's been overwhelming. Catherine can speak, but I don't think she has either. But I think that, it just takes patience and it takes time to make sure that we're doing the right thing for each family that has a crisis.
No, that's not really what I'm talking about, Beth. What I'm talking about is, like, for example, the letters. So the letters need to be looked at. Someone needs to look at them, at the very least, go through and kind of make some wholesale changes to how they're written. And then potentially going forward, if it seems necessary, to every month review them before they go out.
Right.
And as Bill said,
well, part of the problem was that they only had like 12 hours or 24 hours to do that. And I think that's something that Catherine and I are also looking at is, we'll talk about it when it comes up later, but those are some of the things that we're talking about, is giving them enough time to be able to actually write the letter and not have to rush it out, so they can actually, truly look at what they're doing. But, part of what the board had asked for, Catherine, correct me, is that they wanted these back immediately. And that's a lot of stress on Jimmy and Diana. So, we don't have to have those within 12 hours.
Well, part of the problem is that the contract requires that they go out within 24 hours. And that in itself makes it pretty much almost impossible for there to be any kind of additional oversight. in terms of, even if it's Beth and I, or going or sending it back to Bill for review, the 24 hours is really unworkable. I understand why it was written that way. It's probably been that way forever, the 24 hours, but because they wanted there to be a short period of time from inspection, to letter. I mean, because I can remember getting a letter. This was a long time ago, 1998. I got a letter for something that happened 4 months earlier. And I laughed when I saw it, because it was like, you're telling me to mow my lawn. My lawn has been mowed 10 times since this time frame, and my husband's out mowing it right now. And so I think there was a kind of, let's try not to have that happen again.
No, and the letter thing is just one example. I feel like there's been this enormous list of, we need to look at this, we need to look at this, we need to look at this contract again, we need to look at this. And that's an enormous amount of work to get done. And if we don't have any sort of, like, as a board, pathway to getting that accomplished, if it's just sort of this out there, well, someone will look at that eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just worried that there's going to be a lot of frustration among us, because those of us who aren't on the committee can't really do anything. And then we're bothering you guys. And, I don't want to, like, it stresses me out to come to a meeting and feel like I'm like, well, can you do this? And can you do this? And I'm just volunteering that maybe if this is kind of an overwhelming task as a whole, kind of like revamping some of these things that we've all sort of agreed need to be looked at, then can we figure out a pathway to getting that work done, versus
Megan, why don't you, is there a way that you could, I don't know how you feel about this, but maybe that, you send your recommendations over to the committee?
Well, so I think that I'm just brainstorming, I'm just throwing this out here, but to me, kind of the first step would be to, like, kind of write out a list and make sure that the whole board has had a chance to weigh in on what issues do we see with the deed restriction enforcement process as it is, and kind of like what task is associated with that, like what do we actually have to do in order to address that. And then once we've all had a chance to weigh in on that and sort of agree on the kind of like program of work that we need to do, then we can sort of figure out how to get it done. Because I just feel like it's so disjointed. There's all these things flying, and we need some sort of like clear kind of like, these are the tasks that we need to get done, and then figure out.
Then why don't you write up what you would like to see happen and then send it over to us?
Okay, well, it's not just me. I mean, Linda has probably looked at this more than I have.
I've heard it from Linda at every meeting. She's brought up the DRC at every meeting that we've had. So if you guys want to write it up together, then that's fine.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to avoid, is this. I don't like this sense that it's any of us against each other. We are a team. Our job is to work
Agree.
to make this government run efficiently. And if one person feels like they're being attacked by the other, or one committee feels like they're being attacked because they haven't done this yet, or whatever it is, that's not good for accountability, and that's not good for getting things done. So I'm just suggesting that collectively, if we agree that there are things that need to be looked at, we collectively come up with a task list. And, it's not just about what I want. It's not just about what Linda wants. It's about what the board wants. And I don't think there's any one of us who looks at the deed restriction enforcement process and goes, that's perfect. It's a really, really tough.
But it is people don't realize how complicated it is, how many moving parts there is. And in the end, it doesn't matter how smooth you think the process is running. There's always going to be one person or 10 people who are not happy.
but it's
Agree.
about striving to be better, right? That's our, we can
And-
always.
And I think that maybe we talk about this in an executive session also. I don't think that,
Doesn't qualify for an executive session. And Beth, I'm glad you acknowledge that I have brought this up at every single meeting, and I would like to suggest that the committee puts together that initial list from all these meeting discussions that we've had. Because as you said, I bring it up almost every single month, even prior to me being on this board. So it's not like this is new information. It is a committee function, and I can't speak for Megan, but I'm telling you right now, I don't have time to make lists for other committees. I really count on them to hear my pleas at these public meetings, make their lists, figure out how they're going to tackle it, and get back to us as a board so we can vote on if that's the best course of action. Truly, that's a committee function.
And
But if I could, Megan, just real briefly,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea for you to prepare a list of recommendations because that's more deliberation than it is information. So I think that would probably be a bad idea. I sympathize with your concern on the process and trying to speed it up and everything. Unfortunately, I think Linda may be right. The committee should have a running list of things they want to address and then bring it to the meeting, and you and the other board members can add to it. I don't think it's a good idea to develop lists and exchange them outside.
Yeah, that, however it gets done, I'm just suggesting that we need some kind of roadmap to doing all this, because I feel like it's just getting lost in meetings over time. So, we talk about something one meeting and then it, doesn't happen, and then it never gets done. And then, and so, yeah, whoever they can make the list and we can, and then bring it to a board meeting. And if we want to add to it, that's fine. I'm trying to avoid the de-restriction committee from feeling like picked on, and overwhelmed by, all of the immense amounts of work and things that are being kind of thrown out there. I don't want it to feel like an attack. I just want it to feel like this is a, kind of team effort. So, but yes, I
think it would be great to be able to do that, because I want to make sure that, they're getting paid for what they've been doing, because they work hard. I don't think anybody realizes how much they do and how much, we go over a lot of stuff every time, and a lot of it, we try to just say, okay, it's fine. It's been resolved. Thank you so much for doing that. Move forward. What's the next one?
I know you do. That's why I'm suggesting this, because on top of everything that you already have to deal with, if we're kind of suggesting all these other things, I don't want it to just fall entirely on, on you all.
Okay, so this is what I'm hearing that we need to do is that you would like to see a project plan. And so Beth and I need to come up with a project plan so that nothing gets lost, and we can create a process a plan to improve the process.
Yeah.
Am I saying that correctly?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody feels like they're not being heard.
And then,
yeah.
Yes. I just want them to get paid for what they've done in the past too, because I know we still have stuff that's outstanding. So
yeah, that's a different
topic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
This is not about Sage at all. This is about us trying to figure our stuff out.
Okay. So, oh boy, it's a good thing I scrolled my agenda. Okay. So agenda item 12, minutes from prior DRC meetings. Has everybody read the minutes from the prior meeting?
Yes, they're incomplete.
Okay, tell me what is incomplete.
I don't have them up on my screen. I can't help you with that.
Okay. Well, is it incomplete in the sense that, well, I'm not exactly
Does
sure
not
what you mean.
convey decisions made at the meeting. It doesn't say anything. If you want to know what happened at that meeting, you have to watch the video. That's too painful.
Okay,
The
well,
minutes need to reflect what was covered at the meeting, and they don't.
okay, so let's, I'm gonna throw this back to you, Bill. Haven't you reviewed the minutes for completeness, should I say? You know, not necessarily in the sense that I know that every agenda item was on the minutes. Are you are you aware that there were any decisions that were made that that were missing?
Okay, so every month we do review the minutes. It's a cursory review to see if they appear to be accurate, see if the actions voted on by the board are missing. Quite some long time ago, the board decided that the DRC minutes would really be minimal in detail, but they do need to include motions, seconds, and action taken. So a lot of times at the DRC meetings, we don't have board votes, but we have lots of discussion. So
Right.
the board really needs to determine if they want more detailed minutes from DRC meetings and instruct Sage to put those details in, because in the past, the board directed them to minimize the detail in the minutes.
Okay.
So legally, you have to require, you have to put in there who was at the meeting, as far as the board, who made a motion, what the motion was, who voted on the motion. But all the discussion is not legally required.
Okay. So so I've read the minutes. I don't remember there being anything off the top of my head that showed, let's see, is this it? Minutes. That talked about decisions. So coordination, nothing. So from that point of view, it appears that we're clear from that point of view that we don't have any situations where we had board action that required a resolution, a first and a second, and a vote that was missed. Okay.
I didn't check.
So
for
do we
that.
want to make a motion to that?
Well, see, I guess this is where we want to, this is where we have to discuss, are we going to make another change to our minutes?
Well, Catherine, can I suggest this? I mean, I understand that these are really trimmed down. When you compare them to the general board meeting, they're night and day different.
Yeah.
I think where I'm headed with this is such a volatile subject in this district. Deed restrictions are something that impacts everybody. If minutes were generated that answered questions, that described situations, people would have more information at their fingertips, and it would be transparent. The stuff that was discussed in this meeting is relevant to every single resident in this district. And I know what next month's meeting is going to look like. Deed restrictions, Sage Management Services, beautification funds, Melvin Alec is going to be nothing with the details, and the devil is in the details. So people don't go back and watch the videos. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. If we need to make our minutes reflective of our business, it's part of transparency. So why not use this as an opportunity, as an education opportunity? They can see how we've dealt with other things. Maybe it applies to them, maybe it doesn't. They would see, we could try to use the minutes to help instill fairness and equity. How's that? Not to mention transparency, but when we could see on a monthly basis, well, last month you handled it like this. Why are you handling it like this month? That's not congruent. Or why do chickens not get a fine, but pigs do? That's not congruent. this information is so buried inside of meetings that literally you have to go back and watch meetings to get to the date and time when something actually happened. It's not a good way to do it. It's not transparent for sure. But I understand that this is the format that you asked for. This is the kind of minutes that you were looking for. I'm asking that we reconsider the minutes and make them more reflective of what's going on with deed enforcement in the district, especially now that you've trimmed the agenda down. Maybe it makes even more sense now when we're going to talk strictly DRC items in the DRC meeting.
So why don't we talk about changing the minutes at the committee?
I think, Beth, it needs to be a board decision as to how detailed you want them. So the minutes you have before you were prepared under the prior direction of the board. And so you probably need to consider those tonight. But you also need, as a board, I think you need to determine if you want more detail or not. I think it's a board decision.
So do we want to wait till next time when we have all of us here? Because tonight we're missing Art.
Well,
I'm not suggesting that you vote tonight to change the minutes. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm asking you to, I'm asking for consideration. Think about the future as you clean up the deed enforcement and all its things that are not working well. This needs to be a part of that list that you're going to make of things that need improvement.
Okay, I will accept that this needs to be, and I'm writing that down. That we need to do a review of the board minutes. Format. Okay, so does somebody want, so does anybody have any more discussion on the minutes? Okay. So does somebody want to make a motion to accept the minutes? Nobody? Well, what are we going to do here, people?
Well, we
Ask Bill.
I thought that we changed them because they were too long already. So that's where I'm struggling with this. So I thought that we had changed this prior when when I would listen. It's because it was already too long. So here that we shortened them and now I'm hearing that we want them longer again. So I'm trying to, I'm just trying to process that.
Beth, I think we've already determined that we're going to vote on that at a later date as far as the detail in the minutes. What Catherine's asking is if somebody wants to make a motion to approve the minutes that are before
Yes.
you.
Okay. Okay.
I will do that, Catherine. Sorry. I'll make a
Okay.
motion to accept the minutes. Yes.
I'll go ahead and
fine.
second that then.
Too much.
Okay.
Okay.
Does anybody have any more discussion about the December 14th DRC board minutes? Okay.
Are we sure, Bill, that all the voted things are actually in those minutes? I didn't go back and check that.
Well,
Anything that took the vote?
we look at them when they first come out. I'm pretty sure the only thing that looks like we voted on was approval of the minutes.
Okay.
Last time.
Yeah, I did not go back and check that. So it's really hard for me to vote on something if I don't know that it's accurate.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we do this? Let me jump to the end. Hold on.
Catherine, you need to call the vote on that.
Yeah, I know. I'm just looking at the whole part about the minutes where because Art made the motion. I seconded again, and then okay. So I'm just verifying that number 13 on the minutes, which was the prior approving the prior minutes, was actually in the minutes. So okay,
Right.
I'll go ahead and call the vote. Linda,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Beth, And I vote yes
Yes.
too. Okay, so that passes. Okay, so agenda item 13, funding for an interaction with Anderson Mill West, Hunters Glen, Lakeline Oaks, Valentes Hills. We have nothing presented to us, so I'm just gonna move forward with that.
No, I have something on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, oh, it'll be quick. I'd like to discuss a new resolution that puts the money collected from deed violations back into the general fund to offset the cost of deed enforcement. The annual cost for that service is in excess of $150,000 a year with legal services and SAGE. HOAs have their own source of income, and MWANA claimed to the AG they could be self-sufficient without access to public funds. The handling of this discretionary account has provided a ripe opportunity for fraud. I'd like to mitigate that right now and reconsider those funds and how they are used.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, you're making a resolution to get rid
I'm
of the
asking-
beautification
I
fund?
can't make a resolution. I can't make a resolution. I would like to consider a new resolution that puts that money, it's public funds when it hits the district, and just and maybe, I guess maybe, Bill, it would be cancel the old resolution rather than a new one. And that money, like all other revenue, goes right back into the general fund and can be used to offset the cost of deed enforcement.
Okay, I'm actually asking a slightly different question. She's looking to, Linda, you're looking to make a recommendation for an agenda item at a future board meeting. What are you asking for?
I'm asking for consideration that the existing resolution that gives that money to the HOAs and MWANA, I guess it would be voted to terminate that resolution and go with that money into the district's general account. And then, of course, it's part of that bucket.
You're still not following what.
Bill, what do you call it when you terminate a resolution?
Well, listen, Bill, let me just finish what I'm concerned about. Is this agenda item 13 is about voting on funding requests from the beautification fund. She's actually wanting to talk about making a change to that whole process. And that needs to be an agenda item all its own. That's all I'm saying.
The funding thing is either agenda
It's not
item
part of the
8, 9, or
agenda.
10. It's 8, 9, or 10, the agenda that you're thinking of for somebody requesting money. This is funding for an interaction with is the start of this agenda item. And
Yeah,
I'm talking about funding an interaction with.
Okay.
I didn't type out the whole agenda item, so I can't
Yeah.
read the whole thing.
Okay, so let me see if I can respond and maybe it'll make sense. This standing item has been on there for a long time, and it does include, the scope does include requests for distribution from beautification funds. When we know specifically that a request is being made, we list it specifically. So you can see there's nothing specifically listed as a request for distribution from the beautification fund, so it's on there as a standing item. Linda's correct. We can talk about these other issues and how we deal with it. The resolution that was adopted a while ago on the beautification fund clearly states the money is general funds and can be used for any purpose. So as far as changing that resolution to take money out of the beautification fund and spend it on district district expenses for deed restriction enforcement does not necessarily take rescission or amendment of that resolution, because that resolution clearly says we can spend the money on any purpose we want to as general fund. And the board has that right at any time. These are not dedicated or restricted funds. So if the board wanted to spend that money to pay Jimmy or my office on deed restriction enforcement, they could. That could be done. Now, I would probably want to maybe have a more fine-tuned agenda item to do that, but that can be done anytime under the existing resolutions. So I think what Linda's really talking about is using that fund to fund district operations instead of reimbursing HOAs or associations. And so I think that's the topic that she's raising.
Yes.
And we certainly can discuss it generally right now. But I think I would like to have a more specific agenda item to actually do that if that's what the board wanted to do.
That's not an issue with me at all. I thought it would be very appropriate since Melvin Alec came in here and doesn't want the money anyways. So, I mean, if we could get them all to feel that way, even though the HOAs don't really come often. So if we could put that on a future agenda, I'm perfectly okay with that.
Okay. Well, that's what I thought should happen, is because this is a big policy topic that needs to be fleshed out, not just on a off the top of my head resolution. Okay. So that is just going to have to move to another agenda item. I mean, another meeting agenda. That's what I meant.
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So agenda item 14. Lawsuit for 2202 London Lane and 2700 Tierra Blanco. Do you have anything that you want to share with us?
Okay, so let me phrase it this way. It's after 10 o'clock. It's after 10 o'clock. Our effort has been to shorten the meetings. So actually, I don't know if everybody has read the confidential updates that I sent to the board.
Yes.
But this afternoon, I sent updates on those two cases. And the reason I sent confidential updates was to avoid having to discuss those in executive session. Catherine and I have discussed the other listed items. And I think, Catherine, the only one that you wanted or thought we should take into executive session was item 16.
Oh,
16?
yes. Yes.
Item
That is
16 is the lawsuit, Linda, that you recommended we go in executive session on for more detail. I did send an update on that one, and on your lawsuit, Linda, I sent an update to the other directors, not including you because you're a plaintiff.
Right.
But I mean, I'll do whatever the board wants to do. I don't think that I don't have any additional information outside updates on the two lawsuits in 14.
okay. Okay, so we want to do the whole purpose of going into executive session. Remind me, I'm getting tired here, Bill.
Okay, if we go into executive session, it's an opportunity, a confidential opportunity to receive legal advice regarding the action at hand, whatever we go into executive session on. You cannot vote in executive session,
Right.
can't take action in executive session. We'll have to go through the process of going to a separate meeting that I've set up. You have the announcements you'll have to read. And so I don't have any board action for any of these lawsuits that I'm going to recommend tonight. So they would be purely for legal advice on the action beyond what I've sent as updates.
Can I ask this question? On your 27th meeting, do you already have a plan to go into executive session then?
Okay, so what we talked about tonight was we were talking about executive session on all those legal issues that you've raised some, Megan raised some, and I said we should do that in executive session. So I won't call it a miscellaneous or catch-all, but we're already going to have an executive session on that. So we could easily, if Catherine is agreeable, we could easily put number 16 on that agenda and not do it tonight.
Yes, what I would like to have one executive session.
But not tonight, right?
Correct.
I mean, since you did send us an update and nothing will change if we go into session now, from what you've already given us, I do want an opportunity to discuss these, but I am perfectly content to wait until the 27th.
Okay, so
I
Catherine, when we,
appreciate the information, but I want discussion.
I understand, and I respect that, and I'm going to do whatever the board wants to do. So Catherine, when we do the agenda for the 27th, we'll be sure to include these items on there for executive
Okay.
session.
Okay. So that's good. So do we have anything then to talk about agenda item 17?
Yeah, so real quickly, I want to be clear. Art's not here. Hopefully Art can make the future meetings. We're going to have a special board meeting January 27, which is designed to take up all the other business of the district. So on Wednesday, we're going to have a very concise meeting. You'll probably think it's great. The problem is everything else gets bumped to the 27th. So committees and projects, and I have a lot of projects that I'm working on too that got to move forward. Everybody's really busy. 27th is going to be an agenda with everything else. The only exception is the audit. The audit is not ready. I talked to the auditor. He's going to need some more time. He wants to be sure we have enough time to review it. The committee has time to review it. The board has time to review it. He doesn't think he can make the 27th either. So he's recommending first week of February. I told Catherine already, he can do it any evening, the first week of February, except February 4. And it might be best to just have a special meeting just on the audit. And I'm recommending February 3, which is a Wednesday, either 6 or 6:30. So we don't have to make that decision today, but that would be the fourth meeting. So fourth meeting of the month. We're getting a lot of meetings. The audit only comes up once a year, so it deserves, that kind of attention. And this 27th meeting that we're talking about, if you have a committee item, communicated to me. If it's going to be ready, it'll be on the agenda. If we don't think it'll be ready, we won't have a whole bunch of standing items like we normally do. The items on be action items. And I know that's our goal as a board now. We've adopted this goal to do things in advance and only put them on the agenda if they're ready. I don't know how well it's going to work this first try because frankly, there's a lot going on, but that's the purpose.
Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Let me just say that I love the new agenda. I think it's clean, it's neat, it's tidy. I'm all for that. But on Wednesday's meeting, even though I know you want to keep all the committee meetings to the 27th, and I'm okay with that, except for billing an invoice. That has to be discussed with the financial report.
Right. And that's the anticipation, is that will be discussed on Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be discussed. It's not specific. We don't have like bills and invoice committee report on there, but it'll be part of the discussion of payment invoices.
Okay.
Now there's also, we haven't gotten to it. It's on my list, it's committee list. There's like the policy, the reimbursement policy that's in one of our resolutions. That would be the type of item we're talking about at the general meeting when the bills are up. Bills and invoices obviously is going to comment on the invoices.
Okay.
Or the invoicing process. So that's not admitted. We didn't leave that off to exclude that discussion. It's just part of the financials.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd have to send everything to Michael and he'd have to talk about it.
No, you'll be your committee will be able to report on the bills and invoices. Yes.
Okay. Just let me ask while we're talking about future meetings. In the past, the agenda, for the regular board meeting, it basically just had, the report from the engineer, and it was pretty much that was, and then that was pretty much all the agenda items said. But now in the agenda on Wednesday, it has pretty much detailed all of the discussion that took place at the infrastructure committee. So committee meeting. So I'm trying to understand why more detail this time versus in the past. That's all I'm trying to assess.
Okay. Well, Catherine, that was intentional.
Okay.
To the extent we can detail what Herb's report is going to say,
okay,
we need to try to list those categories. In the past, we've had some general categories that his report has fit into. So we reversed that. He was able to give us the actual topics that he's going to cover in his report.
Okay.
And so the agenda items follow his report. So if you have to take action on any of those, we have very specific, much more specific items this time, which is a better practice.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it's like taking some things away and adding more in other areas.
I'm kind of confused about this though, Bill, because, and it just may be the way it's always been done, but why would the district engineer be reporting for the infrastructure committee? Why would the infrastructure committee not be reporting these things?
Well, the thought is that the engineer meets with the infrastructure committee, prepares the memo. So the engineer actually goes through it. It really is part of the committee report too. The engineer has just organized it, and it's not minutes of their meeting, it's a report. And you see it every month. So
Yeah.
Rather than the committee being the one to start the discussion, it's usually the engineer, but it really is designed to be a joint report. And the infrastructure committee should participate in that discussion as part of the presentation.
Right. Which is why when we would get down to the end of the meeting where we're going over the individual subcommittees, this infrastructure always said, yeah, we've discussed everything.
Yeah, that didn't work well. That's why I put them together on this agenda, is so everything regarding infrastructure is discussed up front, and then we go on, rather than having it buried at the end like it was.
Okay. Okay, so do we have any more discussion on agenda item 17? So I guess maybe the question I have is, do we feel that we need to continue having it on the agenda?
Catherine, I recommend we have that item on every agenda for a while until we get comfortable, because the timing is going to be such, sometimes we're going to cut really close to figure out what's on the next agenda.
Okay.
Is this the spot on every agenda where future agenda items are placed? And the reason I'm asking that is because, as you know, Bill, I've sent forward things that I'd like on the agenda, but they don't make it there. And I want to be sure that the agenda is made up of what 5 board members want to talk about and not just 1.
Right. So yes, all your requests have been up till now been passed on to Catherine. The reason they haven't made it on the agenda is because she's had the final say on the agenda. This spot on the agenda to discuss about scope of agenda is where you raise it for the board.
Okay.
And what you think you would like to have on that agenda, and the board can decide if we're going to include it or not.
Okay.
Keep in mind, we're in a transition period now where we're trying to, allocate the items over 3 agendas instead of 2. We're trying to, streamline things. So that is the time. That's why I'm saying we should keep this on the agenda. So every board member can say, I would like these agenda items. And then we could, instead of being just on Catherine, we can decide as a board if we're going to put it on or not.
Okay. That's fair.
And Linda, just to say, a lot of times it's like, okay, no, we're not going to put it on this board meeting. That's why we've had additional board meetings, is that I moved them to the next board meeting just to try to spread them out so that we don't have 7-hour meetings. So, okay. So I'm ready for agenda number 18. Anybody else? I need somebody to move to adjourn the meeting. Oh, come on, somebody.
I agree.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Somebody make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I will second that. Everybody say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.